Welcome to Magic Bloodline. Today we bring you an unforgettable story. What if Bellatrix Lestrange kidnapped and raised Harry Potter? Loving our content? Smash that like button and join our family by subscribing. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1. The witch's air. The night air hung heavy with smoke and magic as Bellatrix Lestrange appeared with a crack at the edge of Godric's hollow. Her wild black hair whipped around her face in the autumn wind, and her eyes glittered with a dangerous combination of madness and purpose. The dark mark that had burned so fiercely on her arm just hours before had faded to a dull throb. Something was wrong. "He can't be gone," she whispered to herself, her wand clutched so tightly that her knuckles whitened. The Dark Lord cannot fall to a mere infant. The rumors had spread quickly through the Death Eater ranks. Lord Voldemort had gone to kill the Potter family and had not returned. Some already spoke of defeat, of his destruction, but Bellatrix knew better. Her master was immortal, invincible. This was merely a setback. Beneath a glamour charm that subdued her most recognizable features, she moved like a shadow through the village until she reached what remained of the Potter cottage. One side of the upper floor had been blown apart, leaving the nursery exposed to the night sky. Magic still crackled in the air, powerful, ancient magic. Bellatrix paused in the garden, watching. The oaf Hagrid had not yet arrived. Nor had any Aurors. The fools at the ministry were likely still celebrating, thinking the war was over. Hominum revelio, she whispered, and felt the spell detect a single living presence inside the ruined house. One survivor. Just as she had hoped. She slipped through the broken door, stepping over James Potter's body without a second glance. Upstairs, she found Lily Potter sprawled before the crib, her red hair fanned out like blood around her head. Bellatrix sneered down at the dead woman before turning her attention to the crib. There he sat, the supposed vanquisher of the Dark Lord, a black-haired infant with bright green eyes, tear tracks staining his chubby cheeks. A lightning-shaped cut marred his forehead, still fresh and bleeding. The boy stared at Bellatrix, but didn't cry out. "Harry Potter," she breathed, leaning closer. "What secret do you hold? What power could you possibly possess to harm my master?" The child blinked up at her, and she felt it then, the residue of extraordinarily powerful magic clinging to him. Not just any magic, but her master's magic, intertwined with something else, something ancient and protective. In that moment, Bellatrix made a decision that would change the course of the wizarding world. "You won't be their martyr or their savior," she whispered, reaching into the crib. "You'll be our weapon instead." She scooped up the child, who seemed too stunned or exhausted to protest. As she turned to leave, her gaze fell upon a wand on the floor, Lily Potter's. She pocketed it swiftly. Such things might be useful one day. Clutching Harry Potter to her chest, Bellatrix Lestrange disappeared into the night, seconds before Hagrid's motorcycle roared in the distance. "Again!" Bellatrix commanded, her voice sharp as a blade. 5-year-old Harry stood in the center of the training room, sweat dampening his unruly black hair despite the winter chill that permeated their hidden cottage. His small face was set in concentration, green eyes narrowed behind round glasses that Bellatrix had reluctantly procured when she realized his vision was poor. "Wingardium Leviosa," he said, pointing the training wand at the feather. The feather trembled but remained stubbornly on the table. Harry's shoulders slumped. "Pathetic," Bellatrix hissed, striding forward. "Your mother wouldn't have failed such a simple task at your age." Harry's head snapped up, eyes suddenly alert. "You knew my mother?" Bellatrix caught herself. She had to be more careful with her lies. "Of course I did. Aurora was a powerful witch. Pure-blooded and talented. Before she was murdered by Dumbledore's order." "And my father?" "Enough questions," Bellatrix snapped. "Your father was a great wizard who died serving the Dark Lord. That's all you need to know." She'd told Harry that his parents, invented pureblood she'd named Aurora and Rigel Black, had been killed by the Order of the Phoenix during the war. That she, his mother's cousin, had rescued him and hidden him away for his own protection. That Dumbledore would never stop hunting for him, the last heir of a powerful dark bloodline. Harry frowned but didn't press further. He'd learned early that Bella's patience had sharp limits. Instead, he turned back to the feather, his small face hardening with determination. Wingardium Leviosa. The feather shot up, hovering steadily at eye level. A rare smile touched Bellatrix's lips. Better. Again. Hours later, when Harry had been sent to bed exhausted, Bellatrix sat alone by the fire, turning a familiar wand over in her fingers, 11 inches, willow, swishy. Lily Potter's wand. She'd kept it all these years, occasionally using it for less important spells to keep it active. He'll need a proper wand soon, she murmured to herself. But we can't risk Ollivanders. The boy was showing remarkable aptitude, particularly for defensive magic, an irony not lost on Bellatrix. The son of James and Lily Potter, being raised to become a weapon for the Dark Lord. Sometimes the thought made her laugh until she couldn't breathe. But lately, something else had been growing alongside her satisfaction with Harry's progress. A possessiveness. A pride. Feelings she hadn't anticipated when she'd snatched the infant from his crib 5 years ago. He's mine now, she whispered to the empty room. Mine to shape. Mine to command. A twisted smile curled her lips. My son. Remember, Harry, you're to speak only when addressed directly. Keep your eyes down. The Malfoys are our allies, but they're not to be trusted completely. Harry nodded, standing straight in his new dark green robes. At 7 years old, he carried himself with unusual poise, his wild black hair the only thing about him that defied control. Yes, Bella, he replied. He'd stopped calling her Aunt years ago at her insistence. Bellatrix studied him critically. Recite your background. My name is Harry Black. My parents were Aurora and Rigel Black, purebloods killed in the war. You're my mother's cousin and my guardian. We live in seclusion because Dumbledore still hunts the remaining faithful to the Dark Lord. And if asked about your scar. Harry's hand moved unconsciously toward the lightning mark on his forehead. A curse backlash when the Aurors attacked our home. Good boy. Bellatrix patted his cheek, her touch almost gentle. These moments of tenderness were rare and unpredictable, like summer lightning. Now, remember, Narcissa is my sister, but she's soft. And Lucius. Lucius bends with the political winds. Their son Draco is your age, but don't be fooled into childish confidences. She held out her arm, and Harry took it obediently. With a crack, they apparat to the imposing gates of Malfoy Manor. The drawing room of Malfoy Manor gleamed with old money and older magic. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, and portraits of pale-haired ancestors watched with haughty disdain as Bellatrix and Harry were shown in by a cowering house elf. Narcissa Malfoy rose from a silk-upholstered settee, her face a perfect mask of aristocratic composure, though her eyes betrayed surprise at the sight of the boy. Bella, she said coolly, embracing her sister with practiced elegance. It's been too long. Sister, Bellatrix returned with a sharp smile. You're looking well. Life among the exonerated agrees with you. Narcissa's expression tightened momentarily before she turned her attention to Harry. And this must be your ward. The last of the Black Branch line. Harry bowed precisely as Bellatrix had taught him. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Malfoy. A flash of something, perhaps approval, perhaps suspicion, crossed Narcissa's features. Quite well-mannered, Bella. I'm impressed. Harry is exceptional in many ways, Bellatrix replied with uncharacteristic warmth, placing a possessive hand on his shoulder. The door opened, and Lucius Malfoy entered, followed by a small boy with platinum blonde hair and a pointed face. Where his father's expression was calculatingly neutral, the boy made no effort to hide his curiosity as he stared at Harry. Ah, our guests have arrived, Lucius said smoothly, inclining his head. Welcome, Bellatrix. His gaze shifted to Harry, lingering momentarily on the scar partially visible through his black fringe. And young Mr. Black. A pleasure. Lucius, Bellatrix acknowledged with the barest hint of a sneer. I see you've brought Draco. Good. The boys should become acquainted. Draco Malfoy stepped forward, chin raised in a miniature version of his father's aristocratic bearing. Hello, he said. I'm Draco. Harry nodded stiffly. Harry Black. Why don't you boys go to the garden while we adults talk? Narcissa suggested, though her tone made it clear this was not a request. Stay within the wards, Lucius added sharply. As soon as they were outside, Draco's formal demeanor dissolved into boyish excitement. So you live with my Aunt Bellatrix? What's that like? Father says she's the most powerful witch among the Dark Lord's followers. Harry glanced back at the manor, unsure how much to say. Bellatrix had trained him to be cautious, but he rarely spoke to anyone besides her. The temptation of conversation with another child his age was strong. She's teaching me magic, he said finally. Advanced magic. Draco's eyes widened. Already? But we're not supposed to have wands until we go to Hogwarts. I have a training wand, Harry admitted. I can do Wingardium Leviosa and Incendio. Really? Draco looked both impressed and skeptical. Show me. Harry hesitated. I can't. Bella says I shouldn't show anyone what I can do. I'm not anyone. I'm your cousin, well, sort of. Draco kicked at the gravel path. Father's teaching me about our heritage, but he says I'm too young for proper magic. It's not fair. Something in Draco's petulant tone made Harry feel strangely older than his 7 years. Bella says fairness is a concept invented by the weak. Draco laughed. That sounds like Aunt Bellatrix. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. Father says she's not quite right in the head since Azkaban. Says we have to be careful around her. Azkaban? Harry frowned. You don't know. She was in prison. For torturing some Aurors. Draco's eyes gleamed with the delicious horror of forbidden knowledge. After the Dark Lord fell. Harry felt suddenly cold despite the summer heat. The Dark Lord hasn't fallen. He's just, waiting. Regaining his strength. He repeated Bellatrix's words automatically. Draco shrugged. That's what Father says too. But Mother told me not to speak of it outside the house. They walked in silence for a moment before Draco brightened again. Want to see my toy broomstick? Father says I'll be a seeker for Slytherin one day. What's a seeker? Draco's mouth fell open. You don't know what Quidditch is? By the time they were called back inside, Harry's head was spinning with new information, Quidditch and Hogwarts houses and Diagon Alley and dozens of other aspects of wizarding life that Bellatrix had never mentioned. It was like discovering a whole new world existed alongside the narrow one he knew. As they prepared to leave, Narcissa pressed a package into Harry's hands. Some books I thought you might enjoy, she said quietly. Educational. Harry clutched the package, feeling Bellatrix's sharp gaze on him. Thank you, Mrs. Malfoy. Later, after they'd returned to their cottage and Bellatrix had thoroughly questioned him about everything Draco had said, Harry was finally alone in his room. He unwrapped Narcissa's package with trembling fingers. Inside were 3 books, Hogwarts, a history, Quidditch Through the Ages, and a slim volume titled, Great Wizarding Families of Britain. A small note was tucked inside the latter, knowledge is neither light nor dark, but power of its own. Read carefully, young Harry. Harry ran his fingers over the embossed covers, a strange feeling swelling in his chest. He glanced at his bedroom door, then carefully hid the books beneath the loose floorboard under his bed, his secret hiding place for treasures Bellatrix might take away. That night, by wandlight long after he should have been asleep, Harry Black read about a world much larger than he'd ever imagined. Focus, Harry. Control your mind. Bellatrix's voice lashed out like a whip as she drove another probe into the 9-year-old's mental defenses. Harry gasped, his knees buckling slightly before he rallied, pushing back against the invasion. Better, she said, withdrawing. Again. 2 hours of occlumency practice left Harry pale and shaking, but Bellatrix was relentless. Ever since their visit to Malfoy Manor 2 years ago, the first of several carefully monitored encounters, she had intensified his training. The books Narcissa had given him remained hidden, read in secret during the rare hours Bellatrix left him alone. That's enough for today, she finally declared. Your shields are improving. Soon not even Dumbledore himself could extract your secrets. Harry nodded wearily, pushing his glasses up his nose. Bella, when will I get my own wand? A real one? She studied him, head tilted in that bird-like way that made her look most unhinged. Soon. Your 11th birthday approaches. But we cannot risk Ollivanders, the old man remembers every wand he sells. Could we go abroad? France perhaps? Or, patience, child. Her lips curled into a secretive smile. I have something special in mind for you. That evening, as Harry sat reading a dark arts text by the fire, Bellatrix entered the room holding a slender box of dark wood. Her eyes glittered with feverish excitement. It's time, Harry. Time for you to claim your birthright as a true wizard. She placed the box in his hands. It thrummed with magical energy, making his fingers tingle. Carefully, he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay a wand of pale wood, elegant and simple. Willow, 10¼ inches. Excellent for charm work, Bellatrix said softly. It belonged to a powerful witch. Was it my mother's? Harry asked, hope flaring in his chest. Aurora's? Something flickered in Bellatrix's eyes, amusement, perhaps, or contempt. Yes, child. Your mother's wand. Take it. Harry lifted the wand reverently. The moment his fingers closed around it, warmth rushed up his arm, and the tip erupted in a shower of red and gold sparks. The sensation was like nothing he'd felt with his training wand, this was connection, completion. Bellatrix watched with an odd expression. It accepts you, she murmured. As I knew it would. Harry couldn't stop staring at the wand, his wand now. It feels right. Magic recognizes magic, blood recognizes blood. She sat beside him, unusually gentle as she guided his hand through a complex movement. Now show me what you can do with a proper channel for your power. The next months were a blur of accelerated training. With Lily Potter's wand, though Harry believed it had belonged to the fictional Aurora Black, his magical abilities flourished. Bellatrix drove him relentlessly, teaching him curses and hexes far beyond what most adult wizards could manage, along with the precise wand movements and pronunciations that made magic most effective. But she also noticed, with growing concern, his resistance to certain aspects of the dark arts. He excelled at defensive magic, at charms and transfiguration, but showed a strange reluctance when it came to causing pain or suffering. You must mean it, Harry, she screeched one afternoon, after his third failed attempt at the Cruciatus curse on a captured rabbit. You must want to cause pain. Harry lowered his wand, his face pale but determined. I've done everything else you've asked. I've mastered spells most grown wizards can't cast. Why is this so important? Because the Dark Lord will expect it. Bellatrix seized his shoulders, her fingers digging in painfully. When he returns, and he will return, he will want to see what I've made of you. If you show weakness, he will destroy you. But why would he care about me at all? Harry demanded, a question that had been growing in his mind for years. I'm just the orphan son of 2 of his followers. Why should the Dark Lord take any special interest in me? Bellatrix's eyes widened, and for a moment, Harry thought he'd gone too far. Then she laughed, a high, cold sound that raised goosebumps on his arms. Oh, my clever little serpent, she cooed, cupping his face with unexpected tenderness. You are so much more than that. So much more precious. The Dark Lord has plans for you, Harry. Great plans. What plans? He pressed, emboldened by her unusual candor. Her smile turned secretive again. In time, child. All in time. She stepped back, gesturing at the frightened rabbit. Now, try again. Think of your enemies. Think of those who would destroy our world, who would see you dead for the power in your blood. Harry raised his wand again, trying to summon hatred, trying to want to cause suffering. But as he looked at the trembling creature, all he felt was a deep reluctance that he couldn't explain, an instinctive aversion that felt as much a part of him as the magic flowing through his veins. Crucio, he said, but the spell fizzled weakly. Bellatrix's disappointment was palpable. With a slash of her own wand, she killed the rabbit instantly. We'll try again tomorrow, she said, her voice hard with frustration. Until you get it right. That night, alone in his room, Harry examined his wand by wand light. Something about Bellatrix's story didn't add up. If this had truly belonged to his mother, why did it feel like it was telling him a different story? Every spell he cast with it felt incomplete somehow. As if the wand was trying to communicate something he couldn't quite grasp. On an impulse, he whispered, "Show me the truth." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, faintly at first but growing stronger, an image formed in the air above the wand, a woman with long red hair and kind green eyes, his eyes, smiling as she performed a charm. The image faded almost immediately, but it left Harry breathless, his heart pounding. That wasn't the dark-haired pureblood which Bellatrix had described as Aurora Black. This was someone else entirely. Someone the wand remembered. "Happy birthday, Harry." Bellatrix's voice startled him from his thoughts. Harry looked up from the ancient grimoire he'd been studying to find her watching him with that peculiar intensity that always made him feel like a specimen under examination. "Thank you, Bella," he replied automatically. 11 years old today. According to everything he'd read in secret, this was the age when young wizards received their Hogwarts letters. But Harry knew better than to mention this to Bellatrix. She'd made it abundantly clear that Hogwarts, controlled by Dumbledore, their greatest enemy, was not in his future. Instead, she had intensified his home education to a punishing degree. Languages, Parseltongue came to him with disturbing ease, wandless magic, potions, and endless dark arts training filled his days. The only respite came during their occasional visits to Malfoy Manor, where Draco's boastful chatter provided glimpses into the wider wizarding world. "I have something for you," Bellatrix said, placing a small package before him. "A token of how far you've come." Harry unwrapped it carefully to reveal a silver locket engraved with an ornate S. "It's beautiful," he said, genuinely impressed by the craftsmanship. "What does the S stand for?" "Slytherin," Bellatrix replied, her eyes gleaming with fanatical pride. "This belonged to Salazar Slytherin himself. The Dark Lord entrusted it to me before he was temporarily diminished." Harry lifted the locket, feeling a strange coldness emanating from it. Something about the object felt wrong, tainted somehow. But he knew better than to say this to Bellatrix. "I'm honored," he said instead, slipping it over his head. "It will protect you," she told him, watching as the locket settled against his chest. "Keep it with you always." Later that day, as Harry practiced advanced shield charms in the training room, an unfamiliar owl swooped through the open window, dropping a thick envelope at his feet before quickly departing. Harry froze, staring at the envelope with its emerald green ink. "Mr. H. Potter, the smallest bedroom, Lestrange Cottage, Dartmoor, Potter." Not black. With trembling fingers, he picked up the letter, breaking the wax seal embossed with a coat of arms, lion, eagle, badger, and snake surrounding a large letter H. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source, CHF. Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confide, of Wizards, Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall. Deputy Headmistress. Harry's heart hammered against his ribs. Potter. They called him Potter. Everything Bellatrix had told him, was it all lies? He heard footsteps in the hallway and hurriedly stuffed the letter under his shirt, just as Bellatrix entered the room. Your shield work is getting sloppy, she snapped, but then her gaze sharpened. What's wrong with you? You look guilty. Nothing, Harry said quickly. Just tired from practicing. She stepped closer, dark eyes boring into his. Don't lie to me, child. Your occlumency isn't strong enough yet. Before he could strengthen his mental shields, she struck, her legitimacy tearing through his defenses like paper. Harry gasped as she rifled through his recent memories, finding the letter, seeing her own deception exposed. Bellatrix withdrew from his mind, her face contorted with fury. Where is it? Give it to me. Harry backed away, clutching the front of his shirt where the letter was hidden. It's addressed to me. Harry Potter, that's my real name, isn't it? Don't be ridiculous, she hissed, advancing on him. It's a trick. Dumbledore's attempt to confuse you, to turn you against me after everything I've done for you. Is it? Harry challenged, emboldened by the certainty growing within him. Or have you been lying to me my entire life? Who am I really, Bellatrix? Her wand appeared in her hand. You ungrateful child. I saved you. I raised you. I made you powerful. You kidnapped me, he whispered, the truth crystallizing in his mind. My parents weren't dark wizards. They fought against Voldemort. Don't speak his name. Bellatrix shrieked. You know nothing. Nothing. The Potters were blood traitors who deserved their fate. So I am Harry Potter, he pressed, even as he raised his own wand defensively. Bellatrix's expression shifted, calculation replacing rage. Yes, she admitted finally. You are Harry Potter, the boy who somehow defeated the Dark Lord. I took you that night to preserve you, to prepare you for his return. Why would you do that if I defeated him? If my parents fought against him? Because of the prophecy, she said, her voice dropping to a reverent whisper. Because you have power the Dark Lord knows not. Power I've been cultivating, directing toward its true purpose. Harry's mind raced, piecing together years of half-truths and outright lies. You want to offer me to him? Like a sacrifice. Not a sacrifice. A weapon. His greatest weapon, once properly controlled. Bellatrix's eyes glittered with mad devotion. And he will reward me above all others for delivering you to him. The truth hit Harry like a physical blow. Everything he thought he knew about himself, about his place in the world, was built on Bellatrix's lies. And now the foundations were crumbling. I won't be anyone's weapon, he said quietly, his grip tightening on his mother's wand. Not yours. Not Voldemort's. You have no choice, Bellatrix snarled, raising her wand. Crucio. Harry had been expecting it, had been training for years against Bellatrix's unpredictable attacks. He dove aside, the curse missing him by inches, and responded instinctively. Expelliarmus. To his shock, Bellatrix's wand flew from her hand, clattering across the room. She stood frozen, staring at him with a mixture of rage and, incredibly, pride. Well done, she said softly. You see. My training has made you formidable. Your training, Harry acknowledged, keeping his wand trained on her. But not your purpose. Bellatrix smiled, a terrible knowing smile. We shall see, child. We shall see. She made no move to retrieve her wand, confident in her control over him even now. The Hogwarts letter changes nothing. You are mine, Harry Potter. You have been since the night I took you from your crib. Harry said nothing, understanding for the first time the full extent of his captivity. He was a prisoner here, had always been a prisoner, raised to serve a master he'd never chosen. What happened to them? He asked finally. My real parents. Something like satisfaction gleamed in Bellatrix's eyes. The Dark Lord killed them, of course. James Potter first, he didn't even have his wand. Then Lily, who foolishly tried to shield you. Her smile widened cruelly. She gave the Dark Lord no choice but to kill her. And then he turned his wand on you. But I survived, Harry said slowly. That's what this is about, isn't it? That's why I have this scar. Bellatrix nodded, her expression almost reverent. You survived the killing curse. The only person ever to do so. That's why you're special, Harry. That's why the Dark Lord will want you by his side when he returns. Or dead at his feet, Harry countered. Her smile faltered slightly. That is also possible. But I have worked too hard, invested too much in you to allow that. She held out her hand. Now, give me the letter. Harry hesitated, calculating his options. He was powerful for his age, but not powerful enough to overcome Bellatrix if she truly meant to stop him. And where would he go? What would he do? The outside world was as foreign to him as another planet. Slowly, he removed the letter from his shirt and handed it to her. Bellatrix took it, satisfaction evident in her face. Good boy. You see. Nothing has changed. I am still your guardian, your teacher, your mother in all ways that matter. And Hogwarts? Out of the question, she said dismissively, incinerating the letter with a casual flick of her retrieved wand. Your education continues here, where I can protect you from Dumbledore's influence. Harry nodded, apparently accepting this verdict. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. The truth, however painful, had awakened something within him, a determination to discover who Harry Potter was meant to be. That night, he lay awake long after Bellatrix had retired, fingering the Slytherin locket that felt cold and heavy against his skin. He now understood the darkness he had always sensed within it. Like him, it was being shaped for Voldemort's purposes. But Harry had other ideas. Silently, he slipped out of bed and retrieved the books hidden beneath his floorboard, no longer just Narcissa's gifts, but others he'd managed to acquire during visits to Malfoy Manor. History books, books about Hogwarts, and most precious of all, a slim volume Draco had lent him about the fall of He Who Must Not Be Named and the Boy Who Lived. My story, Harry whispered, tracing the lightning scar on his forehead. The true one. By wandlight, he read until dawn, absorbing everything he could about the parents he couldn't remember and the destiny that had been stolen from him. And as the first light of his 11th birthday broke through his window, Harry Potter made a silent vow. He would play Bellatrix's game, for now. Continue his training, appear compliant, perfect as a clemency until his mind was truly his own fortress. But he would no longer be her willing puppet. He would learn everything she had to teach, gather every scrap of knowledge about the wizarding world and his place in it. And when the time was right, he would reclaim his life and his true name. Harry Potter, not Bellatrix Lestrange's weapon, but his own person with his own choices to make. The boy who lived would live on his own terms. Chapter 2, Shadows and Blood. The spell struck Harry square in the chest, sending him flying across the training room. He crashed into the wall with bone-jarring force, yet managed to roll to his feet in a single fluid motion, shield charm already forming. Too slow, Bellatrix taunted, her wild black hair framing a face alight with cruel enjoyment. The Dark Lord would have killed you 3 times by now. Perhaps, Harry replied, green eyes narrowed in concentration behind his glasses, but you haven't managed it once. At 14, Harry Potter had grown into a lean, wiry young man with reflexes honed by years of Bellatrix's brutal training. His unruly black hair fell past his shoulders now. Bellatrix refused to cut it, claiming long hair was traditional for powerful pureblood wizards. The lightning scar on his forehead stood out against his skin, occasionally burning when his emotions ran high. With a nonverbal spell, Harry sent 3 consecutive hexes at his mentor, each one building on the last in a combination he'd been perfecting in secret. Bellatrix deflected the first 2 with ease but was caught off guard by the third, a modified impediment jinx that momentarily slowed her movements. In that fraction of a second, Harry struck. Expelliarmus. Bellatrix's wand jerked in her hand but didn't fly away. She laughed, breaking free of the jinx with a surge of magical power that made the air crackle around them. Better, she admitted, lowering her wand slightly. But still not good enough. I disarmed you once before, Harry reminded her, referring to that pivotal day 3 years ago when he'd learned his true identity. Something dark flashed across Bellatrix's face. A moment of carelessness that won't be repeated. The years since Harry had discovered he was not Harry Black but Harry Potter had settled into a precarious détente. Bellatrix had acknowledged his true parentage but continued to insist she'd saved him, not kidnapped him, rescued him from a world that would have used him as a pawn in their crusade against the Dark Lord. Harry had pretended to accept this version of events, playing the role of dedicated student while secretly planning his eventual escape. The problem was, he had nowhere to go. The wizarding world thought him dead or missing. Dumbledore might be searching, as Bellatrix claimed, but Harry had no means of contacting him. His only connection to the outside world remained the Malfoys, and they were hardly allies against Bellatrix. Again, Bellatrix demanded, raising her wand. But Harry shook his head. Not today. I've mastered the Patronus charm you said was impossible for me. I've perfected silent casting faster than you did at my age. I've earned a break. Bellatrix's eyes narrowed dangerously. You do not decide when training ends. Actually, came a smooth voice from the doorway, I believe the boy has a point, Bella. Lucius Malfoy stood watching them, impeccably dressed as always, silver-topped cane in hand. Behind him lurked Draco, now as tall as his father but still possessing that pointed, ferret-like face. Lucius, Bellatrix acknowledged coldly. I don't recall inviting you here. Narcissa was concerned when you missed our scheduled meeting, Lucius replied, stepping into the training room as if he owned it. I can see you were preoccupied. His pale eyes assessed Harry with calculating interest. Over the years, Harry had noticed Lucius's attitude toward him shifting from disinterest to cautious respect as his magical abilities grew. Harry, Lucius nodded in greeting. Impressive spell work. Nonverbal at your age is quite remarkable. Thank you, Mr. Malfoy, Harry replied with practiced politeness. He'd learned long ago that the Malfoys could be useful allies in navigating Bellatrix's unpredictable moods. Draco has been looking forward to showing you his new racing broom, Lucius continued. Perhaps you boys could amuse yourselves while Bellatrix and I discuss some business matters. Bellatrix looked as if she might object, but then gave a curt nod. Fine. Harry, you have 1 hour. As they left the training room, Harry caught Draco's eye. The blonde boy smirked, a familiar expression that somehow managed to convey both arrogance and complicity. Saved you again, didn't I? Draco said once they were safely out of earshot. Merlin, she works you hard. Harry shrugged. I can handle it. Still, Draco persisted, leading the way to the cottage's small garden. She's mental, that one. Father says she was unstable even before Azkaban, but now. He twirled a finger beside his temple. Careful, Harry warned, though without real heat. She hears more than you think. Outside, the summer air was heavy with the scent of wild heather. The protective enchantments surrounding the cottage shimmered faintly in the sunlight, visible only to those who knew to look for them. So, Harry said, changing the subject, what's this about a new broom? Draco's face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. A Nimbus 2001. Father got it for me last week. Says I'll make the Slytherin Quidditch team for sure this year. The casual mention of Hogwarts still stung, even after 3 years. Harry had long since given up hope of attending the school, yet each time Draco mentioned it, the classes, the professors, the Quidditch matches, he felt a sharp pang of loss for the life that should have been his. "Bet it's fast," he said, masking his envy. "Fastest there is," Draco confirmed proudly. "Well, until the firebolt comes out next year." He glanced around conspiratorially, then lowered his voice. "Listen, I've brought something else. Something important." From inside his robes, Draco withdrew a folded newspaper. "Yesterday's prophet. Thought you might want to see it." Harry took the paper cautiously. Bellatrix strictly controlled his access to news, claiming it was full of ministry propaganda. Occasionally Narcissa would smuggle him books or old issues of wizarding periodicals, but current newspapers were forbidden. "Why would I?" Harry began, then stopped as he saw the headline, "Sirius Black Escapes Azkaban." Beneath it was a photograph of a gaunt, hollow-eyed man with matted black hair, screaming silently from the front page. "Black?" Harry whispered. "Is he related to you?" "No, not to the Blacks Bellatrix invented for you," Draco said, watching Harry's reaction closely. "But to your real family?" "Yes. He's your godfather, Potter." Harry stared at the photograph, transfixed. "My godfather? And the man who betrayed your parents to the Dark Lord," Draco added with a touch of malicious satisfaction. "He was their secret keeper, supposedly their closest friend, but he sold them out. Then he blew up a street full of muggles when another friend, Pettigrew, confronted him. Killed 13 people with a single curse." Harry's hands tightened on the newspaper, crinkling the edges. "How do you know all this?" "Father told me," Draco shrugged. "Said I should know since you're living with us half the time now. Said Black might come looking for you to finish what the Dark Lord started." The photograph continued to stare up at Harry, those sunken eyes somehow familiar. "He wants to kill me." "That's what everyone thinks," Draco confirmed. "Why else would he escape now, after 12 years? Harry scanned the article quickly, absorbing what details he could. Sirius Black had been imprisoned without trial in the aftermath of Voldemort's fall. He was considered extremely dangerous, possibly insane from his long exposure to the Dementors of Azkaban. The Ministry was mobilizing all its resources to recapture him. "Father says they'll probably send Dementors to Hogwarts, in case Black tries to get to you there," Draco continued, then caught himself. "Well, if you were there, which you're not." "Dementors at a school?" Harry frowned. "That seems extreme." "Black is the first person ever to escape Azkaban," Draco said with grudging admiration. "They're desperate to catch him." The cottage door opened, and Lucius emerged, followed by a visibly agitated Bellatrix. Harry quickly folded the newspaper and shoved it into his pocket. "Time to go, Draco," Lucius called. "We have what we came for." As the Malfoys prepared to depart, Bellatrix fixed Harry with a suspicious stare. "What were you boys discussing so intently?" "Quidditch," Harry lied smoothly. "Draco's new broom." Bellatrix's eyes narrowed, but she didn't press the issue. "Inside. We have work to do." Harry exchanged a quick look with Draco, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Whatever was happening, Draco would find a way to let him know. That night, alone in his room, Harry reread the article about Sirius Black by Wandlight. His godfather. A connection to his parents he'd never known existed. But also, if the paper was to be believed, the man responsible for their deaths. Something about the story didn't sit right with Harry. Over the years, he'd learned to spot the inconsistencies in Bellatrix's tales, the subtle tells when she was lying or manipulating the truth. Now, looking at Black's ravaged face, he felt the same instinctive doubt. "Who are you really?" he whispered to the photograph. "And what do you want with me?" "Focus, Harry," Bellatrix snapped, her patience clearly wearing thin. "The ritual requires precision." They stood in a small cellar beneath the cottage, which Bellatrix had converted into a ritual chamber years ago. Black candles formed a circle around an ornate silver basin filled with a potion that glowed an eerie blue in the dim light. At 15, Harry had grown taller, his frame filling out from the scrawny child he'd once been. His black hair was tied back now, revealing the lightning scar that seemed more prominent than ever. "I am focusing," he replied, keeping his tone neutral. "But you still haven't explained what this ritual is meant to accomplish." Bellatrix's eyes gleamed with that familiar fanatical light. "Protection and preparation. The signs are clear, the Dark Lord's return approaches. We must strengthen your connection to him." Harry's stomach tightened with apprehension. For months now, his scar had been paining him, waking him from dreams filled with disjointed images and a high, cold voice he couldn't quite understand. Bellatrix had been ecstatic when he reluctantly told her, declaring it proof that Voldemort was regaining his power. "And if I don't want to be connected to him?" Harry asked quietly. Bellatrix laughed, the sound echoing unervingly in the stone chamber. "Oh, child. You have no choice in that. The connection was forged the night he marked you." She reached out to trace the lightning scar with one long fingernail. "This is no ordinary curse mark. It binds you to him in ways even I don't fully understand." Harry fought the urge to step back from her touch. "Then why the ritual?" "To ensure the connection serves our purpose, not his." Bellatrix moved to the basin, stirring the potion with her wand. "The Dark Lord will see you as a threat when he returns. This ritual will help convince him of your loyalty, your usefulness. By controlling me," Harry concluded flatly. Bellatrix's smile was chilling. "By ensuring you make the right choice when the time comes." She held out a small silver knife. "Now, your blood. 7 drops, no more, no less." Harry took the knife, weighing it in his hand. In the 4 years since discovering his true identity, he'd played a dangerous game, appearing to accept Bellatrix's guidance while secretly strengthening his own will and power. He'd mastered a clemency far beyond what she realized, created a mental fortress where his true thoughts remained hidden from her probing. But this ritual threatened everything. Blood magic was ancient and binding in ways ordinary spells were not. "And if I refuse?" he asked, meeting her gaze directly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "That would be unwise." Bellatrix's voice was soft, almost gentle, which Harry knew was far more dangerous than her screaming rage. "After all these years, all I've sacrificed for you, you would refuse me this small thing?" "You've trained me well," Harry acknowledged. "Isn't that enough?" "It would be, if only training were all that mattered." Bellatrix circled him slowly, her dark robes whispering against the stone floor. "But the Dark Lord will want more than skill. He will want certainty. Loyalty beyond doubt. Which I don't have," Harry stated plainly. For a moment, genuine hurt flashed across Bellatrix's face, quickly replaced by calculation. "You could. You should. I have given you everything, Harry. A home when you had none. Knowledge few wizards your age could dream of. Protection from those who would use you for their own ends. Like you're using me." The words escaped before Harry could stop them. Bellatrix's wand appeared in her hand so quickly it seemed to materialize from thin air. "Careful, child. Very careful." Her voice had gone dangerously quiet. "I have been patient with your adolescent rebellion. I have tolerated your questions, your doubts. But do not mistake my indulgence for weakness." Harry gripped his own wand in his pocket, prepared for the attack he sensed coming. But Bellatrix surprised him. "You think I don't understand your struggle," she said, lowering her wand slightly. "The pull of your heritage. The ghost of Lily Potter whispering to you through her wand." Harry stiffened. She had never openly acknowledged that he knew the wand's true origins. "Oh yes," Bellatrix smiled thinly. "I know you've guessed. I've seen you communing with it, seeking her memories, her guidance." She stepped closer. "But what has she given you, this dead woman?" "Empty comfort. Useless sentiment. I have given you power." "You've given me chains," Harry countered quietly. Training designed to make me a weapon, not a wizard. Is that what you think? Bellatrix laughed, but there was no humor in it. Look at yourself, Harry Potter. You command magic most adult wizards cannot comprehend. You've mastered spells Dumbledore would never teach his precious students. You can defend your mind against the greatest legilimens of our age. All so I can serve Voldemort better, Harry said bitterly. The slap came so quickly he didn't see it coming. His head snapped to the side, cheek burning. Do not speak his name, Bellatrix hissed. You haven't earned that right. Harry touched his cheek, feeling the heat of the mark she'd left. In all the years of brutal training, of punishments both magical and psychological, she had rarely resorted to physical violence. Something was changing in her, a desperation growing alongside her anticipation of Voldemort's return. The ritual, she said, composure regained, will proceed. Now. Harry looked at the knife in his hand, then at the glowing potion. He had no illusions about his ability to overpower Bellatrix in direct confrontation. She was still the more powerful witch, with decades more experience and a ruthlessness he couldn't match. But he had other advantages. Very well, he said, stepping toward the basin. Relief flickered across Bellatrix's face as he raised the knife to his palm. But instead of cutting, Harry suddenly flicked his wand with his other hand, sending a pulse of raw magic into the potion. The basin exploded in a shower of blue flame and shattered silver. No! Bellatrix screamed as the carefully prepared potion splattered across the chamber, sizzling where it touched stone. Do you have any idea what you've done? Harry backed toward the stairs, wand raised defensively. Prevented you from binding me to Voldemort, I expect. Rage contorted Bellatrix's features into something barely human. Crucio. Harry had been expecting it, had been training against it for years, but nothing could truly prepare anyone for the Cruciatus curse cast with genuine intent. Pain beyond imagining ripped through every nerve in his body, dropping him to the stone floor as his muscles spasmed uncontrollably. Through the haze of agony, he maintained just enough presence of mind to fumble for the emergency port key he'd secretly prepared months ago, a simple silver ring enchanted to activate at a specific pressure point. As his fingers closed around it, the pain suddenly stopped. Gasping, Harry looked up to see Bellatrix standing over him, wand still pointed at his heart. You cannot escape me, child, she said softly. I found your little port key weeks ago. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the magic? Harry's heart sank. His one contingency plan, discovered and neutralized. Get up, Bellatrix commanded, her voice eerily calm now. We will discuss your punishment. Slowly, painfully, Harry pulled himself to his feet. His limbs still trembled from the aftereffects of the curse. I won't apologize, he said hoarsely. Something like pride flickered in Bellatrix's eyes. I wouldn't expect you to. You've grown strong, Harry. Strong enough to defy me. She lowered her wand slightly. But not strong enough to survive what's coming without my protection. What is coming? Harry asked, sensing a shift in her mood, an opening he might exploit. Bellatrix studied him for a long moment, then seemed to come to a decision. The Dark Lord rises. Even now, his servant works to restore him to a body. Sirius Black. Harry ventured, testing a theory he'd been developing. To his surprise, Bellatrix laughed genuinely. Black? That blood traitor? No, Harry. Not your precious godfather. The casual confirmation that Black was indeed his godfather sent a jolt through Harry, but he kept his expression neutral. Then who? Someone more loyal. More devoted. Bellatrix's eyes gleamed with fanatical certainty. Someone who will be rewarded beyond all others when the Dark Lord returns to power. You, Harry guessed. Her smile widened. Perhaps. I have certainly proven my faith, keeping you safe all these years, training you in preparation for his return. She reached out to touch his face almost tenderly. My greatest offering to him. The boy who lived, turned to his service. Harry didn't flinch from her touch, though it took considerable willpower. And if I refuse to serve him? Then you will die, Bellatrix said simply. And all my work will have been for nothing. The raw honesty in her voice startled Harry. For all her madness, all her cruelty, Bellatrix genuinely believed she was protecting him, preparing him for the only future in which he might survive. I need time, he said finally. To think about all this. Bellatrix's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Time for what? To plan another escape attempt? No, Harry lied, meeting her gaze steadily. To understand my place in what's coming. You've spent years telling me how special I am, how important to the Dark Lord's plans. But you've never explained why. A calculating look crossed Bellatrix's face. Very well. Perhaps it is time you understood. She gestured toward the stairs. Go. Clean yourself up. We'll talk properly over dinner. As Harry made his painful way up the stairs, he knew he'd been granted a temporary reprieve, nothing more. Whatever Bellatrix planned to tell him would be carefully curated to serve her purposes. And whatever punishment she devised for his rebellion would merely be delayed, not cancelled. He needed to act soon. Before Voldemort returned. Before whatever tenuous control he'd established over his own destiny slipped away entirely. But first, he needed information, the truth about his connection to Voldemort, about the scar that seemed to bind them together. And for that, he might have to risk everything on one desperate gamble. The Malfoy library was exactly as Harry remembered from his previous visits, vast, oppressive, and filled with books Hogwarts would never allow in its collection. Ancient tomes on blood magic, soul manipulation, and forbidden rituals lined the shelves, many secured with chains or magical locks. Father doesn't know I brought you here, Draco said nervously, glancing toward the door. He and Mother are entertaining the Minister of Magic. We have maybe an hour before anyone notices we're gone. It's enough, Harry replied, already scanning the shelves. You're sure you saw a book about cursed scars? Draco nodded, moving toward a section near the back of the library. Last summer, when I was researching hexes. It had a whole chapter on permanent magical damage. He pulled out a heavy volume bound in what looked disturbingly like human skin. Here. Magicae vulnera aeterna. Harry took the book carefully, feeling the magic pulsing within its pages. Thank you, Draco. I owe you for this. Draco shifted uncomfortably. Just tell me what you find out, all right? Father's been different since the World Cup. Something's happening. The dark mark at the Quidditch World Cup, Harry nodded. Bellatrix was beside herself when she heard. Said it was a sign. A sign of what? Harry met Draco's eyes. You know what? They both fell silent. Though Draco had been raised to revere the Dark Lord, the reality of his possible return seemed to unsettle him. Potter, Draco said finally, using Harry's true surname as he sometimes did when they were alone, if he does come back, what are you going to do? It was the question that had kept Harry awake for months. I don't know yet. But I won't be anyone's puppet, not Bellatrix's, not Voldemort's. Draco flinched at the name. Be careful who hears you say that. I'm always careful. Harry opened the book, quickly finding the relevant chapter. Stand watch, will you? Let me know if anyone comes. While Draco nervously patrolled near the door, Harry immersed himself in the ancient text. Most of it described ordinary curse scars, magical injuries that refused normal healing due to dark magic. But toward the end of the chapter, he found a passage that made his blood run cold. In the rarest cases, when a killing curse rebounds upon its caster, a phenomenon may occur wherein a fragment of the attacker's essence is transferred to the victim. This creates not merely a scar but a living connection between the two magical beings, allowing for the transfer of abilities, sensations, and in extreme cases, thoughts. Harry's hand went instinctively to his forehead, tracing the lightning bolt shape. A fragment of Voldemort's essence. Was that why he could speak Parseltongue, why his scar hurt when he dreamed of Voldemort? He read on, growing increasingly disturbed. Such connections have been documented in only 3 cases throughout magical history, all with the same outcome, the eventual possession of the victim by the attacker's fragmented essence. In all cases, the only successful treatment was, "Someone's coming." Draco hissed from the doorway. Harry quickly copied the remaining text with a duplication charm Bellatrix had taught him, tucking the copy inside his robes before returning the book to its shelf. "This way," Draco urged, leading him to a concealed door behind a tapestry. "Servants' passage. It leads to the conservatory." They slipped through just as the library door opened. Through a gap in the tapestry, Harry caught a glimpse of Lucius Malfoy entering with a short, portly man wearing a lime-green bowler hat, Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic himself. "Quite understand your concerns, Lucius," Fudge was saying, "but the Ministry simply cannot act without evidence. These rumors about the Dark Mark at the World Cup being connected to, well, you know, they're just that. Rumors." "I pray you're right, Minister," Lucius replied smoothly. "But perhaps additional security for the Triwizard Tournament would be prudent, nevertheless. With so many foreign visitors coming to Hogwarts." Their voices faded as Draco pulled Harry along the narrow passage. "The Triwizard Tournament," Draco whispered excitedly. "It's being held at Hogwarts this year. First time in centuries." But Harry barely registered Draco's words. His mind was still reeling from what he'd read. A fragment of Voldemort's essence within his scar. A connection that could lead to possession. Was that what Bellatrix had been trying to control with her ritual? Or exploit? When they emerged in the sunlit conservatory, Harry's thoughts were racing. He needed to know more, about the scar, about the connection, about whatever Voldemort had inadvertently done to him that Halloween night. "Draco," he said suddenly, "I need one more favor." "What now, Potter?" "Breaking into my father's private collection isn't enough for one day. I need to contact someone outside Bellatrix's circle. Someone who might know about what I am." Draco's pale eyes widened. "You want to contact Dumbledore? Are you mad?" "My father would kill me." "Not Dumbledore," Harry shook his head. "Someone less obvious. Someone who might actually respond." He hesitated, then decided to trust his instinct. "Sirius Black." "Black?" Draco nearly shouted before lowering his voice. "The escaped murderer who wants you dead. Have you completely lost your mind?" "I'm not convinced he does want me dead," Harry replied. "Think about it, he's been free for over a year. If killing me was his goal, why hasn't he tried?" "No, there's something else going on." "Even if you're right, which you're not," Draco argued, "how exactly do you plan to contact a fugitive who's eluded the entire Ministry?" Harry smiled grimly. "The same way anyone contacts a wizard, by owl." "You don't have an owl," Draco pointed out. "And Bellatrix monitors all magical communication from your cottage. Which is why I need yours." Draco stared at him for a long moment. "This is insane, Potter." "If my father finds out, he won't," Harry promised. "The letter won't mention you or the Malfoys at all. And if Black is truly after me, what's the worst that happens? He finds me, which is what would happen eventually anyway." After several more minutes of argument, Draco reluctantly agreed. That evening, before returning to the cottage with Bellatrix, Harry sent a carefully worded letter with Draco's eagle owl, to Sirius Black. "You don't know me, but I believe you knew my parents. I am writing because I need answers about what happened that night, answers no one else seems willing or able to provide. If you truly are my godfather, as I've been told, then I ask for your help. There is something inside me, something connected to the one who killed my parents, and I fear it may be consuming me. I am not where people think I am. I have been raised by one who serves him, who prepares me for his return. If you wish to respond, the owl will find me." Harry Potter. The dreams intensified over the following weeks. Night after night, Harry found himself wandering through an unfamiliar house, listening to a high, cold voice discussing plans he couldn't quite understand. A large snake followed him in these dreams, its scales brushing against his leg as they moved through darkened corridors. He'd wake gasping, his scar burning so fiercely it brought tears to his eyes. The pain would gradually fade, but the sense of dread remained, a certainty that something terrible was approaching. Bellatrix watched him with growing satisfaction, interpreting his nocturnal suffering as confirmation of Voldemort's strengthening power. She had not punished him for destroying the ritual potion, but Harry knew she hadn't forgotten or forgiven his defiance. Instead, she had shifted tactics, sharing more information about Voldemort's first rise to power, about the purity of his vision for the wizarding world. She spoke of him with a reverence that bordered on religious ecstasy, describing a future where magic would be free from Muggle contamination, where wizards would claim their rightful place as the superior beings. "And where do I fit in this glorious future?" Harry asked during one such conversation. They sat in the cottage's small sitting room, rain lashing against the windows as a summer storm raged outside. Bellatrix smiled, that particular smile that never reached her eyes. By the Dark Lord's side, of course. His most valued lieutenant. Not his equal. Her smile faltered. No one is his equal. Not even the one who survived his killing curse. Bellatrix's wand appeared in her hand, though she didn't raise it. "Careful, child. There is a fine line between confidence and arrogance." "I'm simply trying to understand my value to him," Harry said, keeping his voice neutral. "Why he would want me alive rather than dead." "Because you are valuable," Bellatrix replied, twirling her wand between her fingers. "Your power, your potential, and your connection to him." "The scar," Harry stated flatly. Bellatrix's eyes narrowed. "Yes. The scar is more than a mark of your survival. It binds you to him in ways that can serve his purpose. Or threaten it," Harry suggested. "If the connection works both ways." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "What have you been reading, Harry?" He met her gaze steadily. "Nothing you haven't taught me to look for. Magic leaves traces. Connections have consequences." For a moment, he thought she might curse him again. Instead, she laughed, the sound brittle and harsh. "Clever boy. Too clever sometimes." She leaned forward, her dark eyes boring into his. "Yes, the connection is double-edged. It gives you certain abilities. Parseltongue. Sensitivity to his presence. Perhaps more. And what does it give him?" "A way in," Bellatrix said softly. "If he chooses to take it." The casual confirmation of his worst fears sent a chill down Harry's spine. "You knew this all along. That's why you've been teaching me occlumency so aggressively." "To protect you, yes." Bellatrix rose, pacing before the fireplace. "The Dark Lord will not hesitate to exploit any weakness. When he returns, and he will return soon, you must be strong enough to demonstrate your value without being vulnerable to his curiosity." "You mean his possession," Harry clarified. Bellatrix didn't deny it. "The ritual you so rashly destroyed would have helped shield you while strengthening the useful aspects of the connection. Or it might have opened the door wider," Harry countered. "Blood magic is unpredictable, especially with a connection as unique as this one." "You presume to lecture me on blood magic?" Bellatrix's voice rose dangerously. "I who have studied the darkest arts for longer than you've been alive." Harry rose to face her. "I presume nothing. But I won't be a passive participant in my own destruction." For a long moment, they stood in tense silence, wands not quite raised but ready. Then, unexpectedly, Bellatrix smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her face, making her look almost like the beautiful woman she must have been before Azkaban. "You truly are remarkable," she said softly. "James Potter was talented, but weak-willed. Lily was clever but hampered by her Muggle sentimentality. Yet you." She reached out to touch his face, her fingers cool against his skin. You have surpassed them both. The perfect blend of power and cunning. The compliment unsettled Harry more than her rage would have. In these rare moments of what seemed like genuine pride, he could almost believe Bellatrix cared for him as more than just Voldemort's future weapon. "I've done what you asked," he said quietly. "Learned what you taught. Become what you wanted." "Not quite," Bellatrix withdrew her hand. "Not yet. There is one test you have not passed." Harry knew immediately what she meant. The unforgivables. Bellatrix nodded. "You've mastered the Imperius. Your Imperio is strong enough to control even me, briefly. But the others? I won't torture for pleasure," Harry stated firmly. "And I won't kill without cause." "Noble sentiments," Bellatrix sneered. "But the Dark Lord will expect more than noble sentiments. He will demand proof of your commitment." "Then I'll give him proof when I meet him," Harry replied. "Not before." Bellatrix studied him, head tilted slightly. "Very well. We shall see if your resolve holds when the moment comes." She moved toward the door. "Rest now. Your training intensifies tomorrow." After she left, Harry remained by the fire, turning over their conversation in his mind. Bellatrix had confirmed his worst fears about the scar, but also revealed something important. She feared what Voldemort might do to him. Her years of investment, of molding him into the perfect weapon, had created an unexpected complication. She didn't want to lose him, even to her beloved master. That vulnerability might be useful. Harry was about to retire to his room when a soft tapping at the window caught his attention. Through the rain-streaked glass, he could make out the shape of a bedraggled owl. Heart racing, he quickly checked that Bellatrix was truly gone before opening the window. The owl, not Draco's eagle owl, but a nondescript barn owl, hopped inside, shaking water from its feathers before extending its leg. The attached letter bore no name or seal. With trembling fingers, Harry unfolded it. "Harry, I can scarcely believe I'm writing to you after all these years. Yes, I am your godfather, but no, I never betrayed your parents. I was framed by the real traitor, Peter Pettigrew, who is very much alive despite what the world believes. What you've told me about your situation confirms my worst fears. Bellatrix Lestrange has always been Voldemort's most fanatical follower. That she has raised you is a nightmare beyond imagining. Your scar is indeed a connection to Voldemort, but you must resist any attempts to exploit or strengthen it. The magic that protected you that night, your mother's sacrifice, lives in your blood. It is your greatest weapon against him. I am closer than you might think. When you are ready to leave her, I will help you. Send word with this owl where and when you can meet safely, away from Lestrange's detection. Until then, guard your mind and remember who you truly are, the son of Lily and James Potter, who died protecting you out of love, not the weapon Bellatrix has tried to forge. Your godfather, Sirius P.S. Tell no one of this communication, especially the Malfoys. Lucius was a Death Eater, whatever he claims now, and cannot be trusted." Harry read the letter twice more before burning it in the fireplace, watching as the parchment curled and blackened. Sirius Black was innocent. His parents had been betrayed by someone else entirely. And most importantly, his godfather was nearby, offering escape. But escape to what? To where? The wizarding world thought Harry Potter was dead or missing. Dumbledore and his allies might protect him, but they would also use him in their own fight against Voldemort. Was trading one master for another really freedom? The owl hooted softly, clearly waiting for a response. Harry quickly penned a brief note, "I believe you. But I need more information before I can leave. What happened that night? How did my mother's protection work? And what do you know about fragments of essence transferred through killing curses? I'm watched constantly. Meeting would be difficult but not impossible. Give me time to create an opportunity." He sent the owl back into the storm, watching until it disappeared into the darkness. For the first time in years, Harry felt a flicker of genuine hope, not just of escape, but of answers. Of understanding what he truly was and what his connection to Voldemort meant. But even as that hope took root, his scar gave a particularly vicious throb, as if in warning. Whatever was happening with Voldemort, it was accelerating. Time was running out. "You've been distracted for weeks," Bellatrix observed, her eyes following Harry as he practiced a particularly complex shielding charm. "Your form is sloppy. Your concentration weak." "I've had trouble sleeping," Harry replied, which was not a lie. The dreams of Voldemort had increased in both frequency and clarity, leaving him exhausted and on edge. They were in the garden behind the cottage, taking advantage of the mild autumn weather. It was late September, and according to Draco's last letter, the Triwizard Tournament was about to begin at Hogwarts. The wizarding world was focused on the historic event, which provided a welcome distraction from the continuing search for Sirius Black. "These dreams," Bellatrix said, circling Harry with predatory intensity. "Describe them again." Harry sighed, lowering his wand. "The same as before. A house I don't recognize. A large snake. A high voice discussing plans I can't quite make out. And the man? The servant you mentioned?" "Sometimes there," Harry acknowledged. "Small, nervous. Deferential." Bellatrix's face lit with excitement. "Wormtail," she whispered. "It must be. Wormtail. Peter Pettigrew," Bellatrix clarified. "A sniveling, cowardly man, but useful in his way. So he found the Dark Lord after all." Harry's heart skipped a beat. Pettigrew, the man Sirius claimed had betrayed his parents and framed him. "I thought Pettigrew was dead. Killed by Sirius Black." Bellatrix laughed harshly. "Is that what they told you?" "No, Pettigrew was smarter than anyone gave him credit for. He escaped that day, leaving Black to take the blame." Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "But how would you know about Pettigrew at all?" "I never mentioned him." Harry thought quickly. "Dreams. I've heard the name in my dreams. The high voice calls him Wormtail." The lie seemed to satisfy Bellatrix. "Your connection grows stronger." "Good. That will serve you when you finally meet the Dark Lord." "And when will that be?" Harry asked, trying to sound eager rather than apprehensive. "Soon," Bellatrix promised, her eyes gleaming with fanatical anticipation. "The signs are clear. His servant works even now to prepare the way." Harry resumed his practice, mind racing. If Pettigrew was alive and helping Voldemort, then Sirius was telling the truth. Which meant everything else he'd written might also be true, about Harry's parents, about his mother's protection, about the danger of the connection through his scar. That evening, as he prepared for another restless night, Harry found an unfamiliar package on his bed, a heavy object wrapped in black velvet. No note accompanied it, but Bellatrix's magical signature was unmistakable. Cautiously, he unwrapped the velvet to reveal an ancient-looking book bound in pale leather that had an unsettling resemblance to human skin. The title was burned into the cover in runic script that Harry could just barely decipher, "Secrets of the Darkest Art." His breath caught. This was among the darkest books in existence, banned in most wizarding countries and rumored to contain magic so foul that merely reading certain passages could taint one's soul. A small slip of parchment fell from between the pages, bearing Bellatrix's distinctive spidery handwriting, "For your education. Chapter 7 may interest you particularly. Read carefully, and alone." Heart pounding, Harry turned to Chapter 7. The title made his blood run cold, Horcruxes, anchoring the soul to mortal realms. The text that followed described a process so horrific, so fundamentally unnatural, that Harry felt physically ill reading it. A Horcrux, an object in which a wizard concealed a piece of their soul, torn apart through the supreme act of evil, murder. As long as the Horcrux existed, the wizard could not truly die, even if their body was destroyed. A fragment of essence, Harry whispered, remembering what he'd read in the Malfoy's library. Could his scar contain not just a connection to Voldemort, but an actual piece of his soul? The thought was so repulsive that Harry slammed the book shut, his hands shaking. If it was true, if he carried a piece of Voldemort's soul within him, what did that make him? Not just connected to the Dark Lord, but containing a part of him. No wonder Bellatrix had been so intent on controlling him, on ensuring his loyalty. He wasn't just a potential weapon, he was a vessel for part of her master's very essence. With sudden clarity, Harry understood the true danger of his situation. If Voldemort returned and discovered what Harry carried, he might seek not to recruit him but to reclaim the soul fragment, a process that would almost certainly mean Harry's death. Or worse, he might use the connection to possess Harry completely, overwhelming his identity with the fragment already embedded within him. Either way, Harry needed to act. Now, before Voldemort regained his power, before the fragile independence Harry had cultivated was swept away in the tide of the Dark Lord's return. Quickly, he penned a letter to Sirius. I understand now what I carry. It's worse than we thought. Not just a connection, a fragment. I need to leave immediately. In 3 days, Bellatrix travels to meet with someone important, likely connected to V's return. I'll have a window of 4 hours, from midnight until dawn. The cottage is on Dartmoor, hidden under Fidelius with B as secret keeper, but I can make my way to the old stone circle 2 miles northwest. Can you meet me there? Using a variation of the communication spell Bellatrix had taught him for emergencies, Harry summoned an owl from the nearby woods. The spell was subtle enough to avoid detection by the cottage's wards, which were primarily designed to keep intruders out, not messages in. As the owl disappeared into the night, Harry returned to the dreadful book, forcing himself to read more about Horcruxes. If he carried one inside him, he needed to know everything, how they worked, how they influenced their containers, and most importantly, how they might be destroyed. What he read offered little comfort. Destroying a Horcrux required damage beyond magical repair, fiend fire, basilisk venom, or similarly destructive forces. None of which could be applied to a living container without killing it. Killing him. Harry closed the book, a cold certainty settling in his chest. If he truly carried a piece of Voldemort's soul, there might be no way to remove it without sacrificing his own life. The ultimate choice might come down to his survival versus Voldemort's permanent defeat. For the first time since discovering his true identity, Harry felt the full weight of what it meant to be Harry Potter, not just a kidnapped child or a weapon being forged for darkness, but a crucial piece in the struggle between Voldemort and those who opposed him. His mother had died to protect him. Now he might have to die to complete what she started. But not yet. First, he needed answers, confirmation of what he suspected, and knowledge of any alternatives that might exist. For that, he needed Sirius, and perhaps Dumbledore. He needed to escape. The night was moonless and cold when Harry slipped out of the cottage. Bellatrix had left hours earlier, dressed in her finest robes, her face alight with an almost religious fervor. A gathering of the faithful, she told him. The first step toward our master's return. Harry had played his part perfectly, the eager disciple, anxious for news of Voldemort's restoration. Bellatrix had been so pleased with his apparent enthusiasm that she'd left without the usual battery of restraining spells and monitoring charms. Or so he'd thought. He'd made it barely 100 yards into the woods surrounding the cottage when the first alarm sounded, a high, keening wail that cut through the quiet night. Cursing under his breath, Harry broke into a run. Bellatrix must have set new wards, ones he hadn't detected during his careful preparations. The stone circle was still nearly 2 miles away. Harry sprinted through the trees, using every concealment and silencing charm he knew to mask his passage. But the damage was done, the alarm would have notified Bellatrix instantly, and her rage when she realized his betrayal would be terrible. He had minutes, at most, before she returned. And she wouldn't come alone. The trees thinned as he approached the edge of the moor. Ahead, silhouetted against the star-filled sky, stood the ancient stone circle, 7 weathered monoliths arranged in a perfect ring. It was a place of old magic, predating wands and wizards, where the veil between worlds was said to be thinner than elsewhere. And standing in its center, a tall figure waited. Sirius, Harry gasped as he stumbled into the circle. The man turned, and Harry got his first clear look at his godfather. Sirius Black was thinner than in his wanted posters, his face gaunt but no longer hollow with madness. His black hair fell in waves to his shoulders, and his eyes, so like Harry's own in shape and intensity, lit up at the sight of him. "Harry," Sirius breathed, moving forward as if to embrace him before stopping himself. "Merlin, you look so much like James." "But your eyes, my mother's," Harry finished, having heard this from Narcissa on the rare occasions she mentioned Lily Potter. "We don't have much time. Bellatrix set alarms I didn't detect." Sirius's expression hardened. "Then we need to move quickly. I have a port key that will take us to safety." He pulled a simple playing card from his pocket. "It activates on the word sanctuary." Harry hesitated, his hand halfway to the card. "Before we go, I need to know. What am I carrying in this scar? Is it what I think it is?" Sirius frowned. "What do you think it is?" "A piece of his soul," Harry said bluntly. "A Horcrux." The color drained from Sirius's face. "Where did you hear that term?" "Bellatrix gave me a book. Secrets of the Darkest Art. It describes how to split the soul, how to create anchors to prevent true death." Harry touched his scar. "Is that what this is? Did he make me into a Horcrux that night?" "Dumbledore suspected something similar," Sirius admitted reluctantly. "But he never used that specific term with me." "Then it's true," Harry whispered, a cold certainty settling in his chest. "I have to die for him to be truly defeated." "No." Sirius grabbed his shoulders. "Listen to me, Harry. Dumbledore is the greatest wizard alive. If there's a way to remove that thing without harming you, he'll find it." Harry wasn't convinced, but there was no time to argue. In the distance, he heard the distinctive crack of apparition. "She's here," he said grimly, drawing his wand. "With others." Sirius's face hardened. "Take the port key. Go. I'll hold them off." "I'm not leaving you," Harry said firmly. "We go together or not at all." Before Sirius could respond, the air around the stone circle seemed to thicken, becoming dense and oppressive. A familiar cackling laugh echoed across the moor. "Oh, my darling boy," Bellatrix's voice called from the darkness. "Did you really think I wouldn't have precautions for precisely this scenario? That I wouldn't recognize the name Black on your little correspondence?" She emerged from the shadows, flanked by two masked Death Eaters. Her face, usually so carefully controlled around Harry, was contorted with rage and betrayal. "And Sirius," she continued, her wand trained unerringly on her cousin. "How touching. Coming to rescue your precious godson after all these years. Too bad you'll both die tonight." "The only one dying tonight might be you, Bella," Sirius replied, his voice cold with hatred. "You stole him. You twisted him. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" Bellatrix laughed, the sound chilling in its genuine amusement. "Consequences? I saved him from Dumbledore's manipulations. I made him stronger than you or James Potter could ever have dreamed." "You made him a weapon," Sirius snarled. "A sacrifice for your insane devotion to Voldemort." "Don't speak his name," Bellatrix shrieked. Then, visibly composing herself, she turned to Harry. "One last chance, child. Come back with me now, and I'll forgive this lapse in judgment. Continue this foolishness, and I'll have no choice but to consider you an enemy." Harry raised his wand, feeling strangely calm despite the danger. "I was never your child, Bellatrix. And I will never serve Voldemort." Fury and grief warred on Bellatrix's face, genuine grief, Harry realized with surprise. In her twisted way, she had come to care for him. Perhaps even love him, as much as someone like her could love anything besides Voldemort. "Then you leave me no choice," she said softly. "Avada," Protego Maxima. Harry roared, throwing everything he had into the shield charm. A dome of shimmering energy erupted around him and Sirius just as Bellatrix's killing curse shot toward them. The green light struck the shield and, impossibly, rebounded, not back at Bellatrix, but upward into the night sky where it exploded like verdant lightning. Everyone froze, staring in shock. The killing curse couldn't be blocked by any shield charm known to wizardkind. Yet somehow, Harry had done it. In the moment of stunned silence, Sirius acted. "Sanctuary," he shouted, grabbing Harry's arm. The portkey activated, and Harry felt the familiar hook behind his navel. The last thing he saw was Bellatrix's face, not angry now, but filled with a terrible, possessive pride. "You see," she called as they vanished. "He is magnificent. Worthy of the Dark Lord himself." Then they were spinning through space, leaving behind the stone circle, the moor, and a woman who had raised Harry Potter to be a weapon of darkness. They landed hard on a wooden floor, Harry's knees buckling from the impact. Disoriented, he clutched his wand, prepared to continue the fight, only to find himself in a dusty, dimly lit kitchen that bore no resemblance to the battlefield they'd just left. "Where are we?" he asked, rising cautiously to his feet. Sirius was already moving around the room, lighting lamps with quick flicks of his wand. "My family home. Number 12, Grimmauld Place. Not much to look at, but under the Fidelius charm with Dumbledore as secret keeper. About as safe as anywhere can be right now." Harry took in his surroundings, the ancient, heavy furniture, the ceiling blackened with centuries of cooking smoke, the general air of neglect and decay. "Your family home? The Blacks? Ironic, isn't it?" Sirius gave a bark-like laugh. "Bellatrix told you your surname was Black. In a way, through your grandmother Doria, you do have black blood. Just not the way she claimed. So we're related?" Harry asked, feeling a strange sense of connection to this man he barely knew. "Distant cousins, before I became your godfather," Sirius confirmed, his expression softening. "Your father was my best friend. My brother in all but blood." A lump formed in Harry's throat. For years, he'd yearned for information about his real parents, scraps that he could piece together into some understanding of who they had been. Now, standing before him was someone who had actually known them, loved them. "Tell me about them," he said quietly. "Please." Sirius seemed about to respond when a soft pop announced the arrival of the most bizarre creature Harry had ever seen, a house elf, but ancient and withered, wearing nothing but a filthy rag around its middle, its bat-like ears drooping with age. "Master has returned," the creature croaked, bowing so low its long nose nearly touched the floor. "And he brings the Potter boy." "Oh yes," creature seized the resemblance to the blood traitor James Potter. "That's enough, creature," Sirius said sharply. "Prepare the guest room for Harry. Make sure it's clean. Actually clean, not your version of clean." The house elf muttered something that sounded suspiciously like a string of insults but disappeared with another pop. "Charming," Harry commented drily. Sirius snorted. "Family retainer. Loyal to my mother's memory and all her pureblood mania. Speaking of which." He gestured toward the kitchen door. "Welcome to the most ancient and noble house of Black. Make of it what you will." The rest of the house proved to be as grim as the kitchen, dark, oppressive, and filled with artifacts that reminded Harry uncomfortably of Bellatrix's collection. Portrait frames hung empty on the walls, their occupants apparently elsewhere. "I've covered most of the portraits," Sirius explained, following Harry's gaze. "My dear mother's in particular. She has opinions about my choice of guests." They settled in a slightly less forbidding sitting room, where a fire had been lit in the grate. Sirius conjured a tea service with a casual flick of his wand, a small luxury Harry realized he'd been denied under Bellatrix's strict training regimen, where magic was never used for comfort or convenience. "So," Sirius said, pouring tea with surprisingly elegant movements for a man who'd spent 12 years in prison. "Where do we start?" "The beginning," Harry replied without hesitation. Who were my parents, really? What happened that night? And what am I supposed to do now? For the next several hours, Sirius talked. He told Harry about James Potter, brilliant, arrogant, fiercely loyal, and Lily Evans, who'd hated James for years before falling in love with the man he grew to be. He spoke of their defiance of Voldemort, of the prophecy that had marked Harry before his birth, of the betrayal by Peter Pettigrew that had led to their deaths. Dumbledore believes your mother's sacrifice created a protection in your blood, Sirius explained, his voice rough with emotion. When she died to save you, it invoked ancient magic, magic Voldemort didn't understand. That's why the killing curse rebounded, why you survived with nothing but the scar. And the piece of his soul, Harry added quietly. Sirius's face darkened. If that's truly what it is, and I pray to Merlin it's not, then it was almost certainly an accident. Voldemort wouldn't have intentionally made you a Horcrux. From what Dumbledore has theorized, his soul was already so unstable from previous divisions, that the rebounded curse caused another fragment to break off and attach to the only living thing in the room. Me, Harry whispered, touching his scar. So I am carrying a piece of Voldemort. Possibly, Sirius hedged. But Dumbledore will know more. He's been researching this situation for years. And if it is true? Harry pressed. If the only way to destroy that piece of soul is to destroy its container? Sirius set down his teacup with a sharp click. Then we'll find another way. I didn't just find you to lose you again, Harry. The raw emotion in his godfather's voice touched something deep inside Harry, a place Bellatrix had never reached despite years of twisted mentorship. Here was someone who cared for him simply because of who he was, not what use he could be. What happens now? He asked finally. Dumbledore is in Albania, tracking a lead on Voldemort's whereabouts. He'll return as soon as he gets my message about finding you. Sirius leaned forward intently. Until then, you stay here, where Bellatrix can't reach you. We begin undoing whatever damage she's done. She taught me magic, Harry said defensively, surprising himself. Advanced magic most adult wizards never master. Dark magic, Sirius corrected gently. Designed to corrupt as much as empower. Not all of it was dark, Harry insisted. And even the dark spells can be used for protection, for defense. Sirius studied him thoughtfully. You sound like Lily there. She always saw shades of gray where others saw only black and white. He sighed. I won't pretend to understand what your life with Bellatrix was like, Harry. But I do know this, you are not what she tried to make you. You proved that by seeking me out, by choosing to leave. Harry nodded slowly, but doubt lingered. Had he truly escaped Bellatrix's influence, or merely exchanged one form of control for another? Would Dumbledore and his allies be any different, seeing him as a weapon against Voldemort rather than for him? And what of the apparent Horcrux within his scar? If his death was necessary to defeat Voldemort permanently, would Dumbledore hesitate to sacrifice him for the greater good? These questions swirled in his mind as exhaustion finally claimed him. Sirius showed him to a bedroom that had been hastily cleaned, its heavy velvet curtains and ornate furniture speaking of a grandeur long faded. We'll talk more tomorrow, Sirius promised, lingering awkwardly at the door as if wanting to say more but unsure how. And Harry. I'm glad you're here. Your parents would be proud of the choice you made tonight. After Sirius left, Harry sat on the edge of the massive four-poster bed, turning his wand, his mother's wand, over in his fingers. For the first time since discovering his true identity, he was free from Bellatrix's direct influence. Free to decide his own path forward. Yet as he touched the lightning scar on his forehead, he felt anything but free. The burden of what he carried, what he was, weighed heavier than ever. What now, mother? He whispered to the wand in his hand. What would you have me do? No answer came, of course. But as Harry finally lay down to sleep, he thought he felt a warmth from the wand, a gentle pulse of magic that somehow conveyed comfort rather than power. For tonight, at least, that would have to be enough. Chapter 3, Neither dark nor light. The curse shattered against Harry's shield, fragments of malevolent magic dissipating like crimson sparks. He didn't hesitate, responding with a flurry of spells, not the simple disarming charm favored by Dumbledore's followers, but a precisely calculated combination that left his opponent bleeding, wandless, and bound in conjured chains. That wasn't necessary, Remus Lupin observed quietly from the doorway of the training room. Tonks was only testing your reflexes. Harry lowered his wand, pushing sweat-dampened hair from his forehead. The lightning scar stood out vividly against his skin, a constant reminder of what he carried within. In a real fight, hesitation means death, he replied, the words an echo of Bellatrix's teachings. Tonks understands. The pink-haired Auror grimaced as she freed herself from the chains with a non-verbal counterspell. He's not wrong, Remus. That's exactly what Mad Eye would say. She flexed her fingers, examining the shallow cuts across her palm with professional detachment. Nice wand work, Harry. Not entirely ministry approved, but effective. At 17, Harry Potter had become a study in contradictions. Tall and lean like his father, with Lily's vivid green eyes behind round glasses, he carried himself with a confidence that bordered on predatory. His magic, honed first under Bellatrix's brutal tutelage and later refined during 2 years with the Order, was unlike anything his current mentors had seen, neither purely light nor dark, but a seamless integration of both that made him formidable beyond his years. Dumbledore's waiting in the kitchen, Lupin said. The latest intelligence has come in. Harry nodded, offering Tonks a hand up. Same time tomorrow. If I've recovered by then, she joked, but there was a seriousness in her eyes that hadn't been there months ago. The war was no longer theoretical. Voldemort had returned, just as Harry's dreams had foretold, and the wizarding world was rapidly descending into chaos. Grimmauld Place had changed since Harry's arrival 2 years earlier. Once a grim monument to pureblood fanaticism, it had gradually transformed into the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix. The darkest artifacts had been removed, the rooms cleansed of their malevolent enchantments, the mounted house elf heads taken down over creatures' vociferous protests. Yet Harry had insisted on preserving certain aspects of the house's heritage. The Black family library remained largely intact, its collection of rare magical texts, many focused on the dark arts, carefully maintained under protective wards that Harry himself had designed. Knowledge isn't inherently evil, he'd argued when Molly Weasley had suggested burning the more questionable volumes. Understanding dark magic is essential to defending against it. This philosophy, remnant of his years with Bellatrix, had created friction with some Order members. But Dumbledore, after initial reservations, had come to appreciate the unique perspective Harry brought to their struggle. The kitchen was crowded when Harry entered. Arthur and Molly Weasley sat beside their eldest son, Bill, deep in conversation with Kingsley Shacklebolt. The Weasley twins huddled in a corner with Mundungus Fletcher, likely discussing some dubious business venture. And at the head of the table, silver beard gleaming in the firelight, sat Albus Dumbledore. The headmaster looked up as Harry approached, those piercing blue eyes assessing him with characteristic intensity. Their relationship had evolved over the past 2 years from cautious evaluation to something resembling mutual respect, though never the grandfather-grandson dynamic Dumbledore might have preferred. "Ah, Harry," he greeted, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. "Excellent timing. We were just discussing the situation at Hogwarts." Harry took the offered seat, nodding briefly to Sirius, who sat opposite. His godfather looked better than he had 2 years ago, still lean, but healthier, his face no longer gaunt with suffering. Being officially exonerated after Pettigrew's capture had allowed him to reclaim his life, though he remained fiercely protective of Harry. "What's happened?" Harry asked, accepting the cup of tea Molly pushed toward him. "Severus reports that Voldemort has become obsessed with gaining access to the school," Dumbledore replied gravely. "Not for the students, as one might expect, but for an object he believes is hidden there." "The Elder Wand," Harry said immediately. The Horcrux connection, though carefully contained through the occlumency barriers he'd perfected, occasionally provided flashes of Voldemort's thoughts, particularly when the Dark Lord's emotions ran high. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. "You've seen this in your dreams?" Harry nodded. "He believes you have it. That it's the source of your power." And he would be correct, at least in part, Dumbledore acknowledged, causing a ripple of surprise around the table. Few had been privy to the truth about the headmaster's wand. Which makes Hogwarts his likely target in the very near future. "Then we must prepare for an assault," Kingsley's deep voice rumbled. "The Ministry can provide orders, but our resources are stretched thin with the Dementor attacks in the north. The Order will defend Hogwarts," Arthur Weasley stated firmly. "The children must be protected." "Evacuated," Harry corrected. "If Voldemort comes in force, no defense will hold indefinitely." Sirius nodded in agreement. "Harry's right. We need evacuation plans, not just defensive strategies." The discussion continued, tactical considerations blending with logistical challenges. Harry listened attentively, occasionally offering insights informed by his unique understanding of both Voldemort's methods and Bellatrix's likely strategies. The latter remained Voldemort's most devoted lieutenant, having been broken out of Azkaban shortly after his return. She had not forgotten Harry. The betrayal, as she termed his escape, had transformed her obsessive training into vengeful pursuit. Twice in the past year, she had nearly captured him, once in Diagon Alley when he'd ventured out disguised to obtain potion ingredients, and again during the skirmish at the Department of Mysteries, where her killing curse had missed him by inches before striking Sirius instead. His godfather would have died had Harry not used a counter-curse from Bellatrix's own repertoire, a spell that temporarily suspended life functions, creating a stasis that allowed magical healing to work even against normally fatal injuries. The irony hadn't been lost on anyone. Bellatrix's teaching had saved her cousin from her own curse. "Harry." Dumbledore's voice broke through his reverie. "Your thoughts on the matter?" He refocused on the conversation, which had shifted to the potential involvement of Hogwarts students in the coming conflict. "The older students have a right to choose," he said firmly. "Many are already 17, legal adults who shouldn't be forced to evacuate if they wish to fight." "They're children," Molly protested. "They haven't your training or experience." "Neither did I when Voldemort first came for me," Harry countered quietly. "Neither did my parents when they defied him. War doesn't wait for convenient timing." A heavy silence fell across the kitchen. Harry's perspective, shaped by a childhood under Bellatrix's harsh tutelage and 2 years of intensive preparation for the inevitable confrontation with Voldemort, often reminded the Order of how different his experiences had been from a normal wizard's upbringing. "Well said, Harry," Dumbledore finally responded. "Although I share Molly's desire to protect our students, choice is indeed a fundamental right, one Voldemort himself would deny them." He rose from the table. "I must return to Hogwarts to begin preparations. Harry, perhaps you would accompany me? There are matters concerning your unique situation that we should discuss privately." Harry nodded, recognizing the gravity in Dumbledore's tone. Their research into Horcruxes, and specifically, how to remove the soul fragment from Harry without killing him, had taken on increased urgency as Voldemort grew stronger. As the meeting dispersed, Sirius caught Harry's arm. "Be careful," he said quietly. "Dumbledore has his own agenda, as much as I respect him." "I know," Harry replied with a faint smile. "Bellatrix taught me one useful thing at least, never to trust completely in anyone's vision but my own." "Not even mine?" Sirius asked, half joking. "Especially not yours," Harry returned with genuine warmth. "Your judgment in mentors is questionable at best. Look who you chose as godson." Sirius's bark-like laugh echoed through the kitchen as Harry followed Dumbledore toward the Floo connection. Despite the grim circumstances, these moments of normalcy, of family, remained precious to Harry. They represented everything Bellatrix had tried to deny him, everything he now fought to preserve. But as his hand unconsciously traced the lightning scar on his forehead, Harry knew that normal was something he might never truly claim. The headmaster's office at Hogwarts remained largely as Harry remembered from his few previous visits, circular, filled with curious silver instruments, the walls lined with portraits of former headmasters who never quite managed to convincingly feign sleep during important conversations. Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, trilled a soft greeting from his perch. The magnificent bird had formed an unexpected bond with Harry during their first meeting, perhaps recognizing in him the strange duality of darkness and light that defined his existence. "Please, sit," Dumbledore gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "Lemon drop?" Harry declined the offered sweet, watching as Dumbledore settled himself with the careful movements of a man feeling his age. The curse that had blackened the headmaster's right hand had spread in recent months, despite their successful destruction of the ring Horcrux that had caused it. "You wish to discuss my situation," Harry prompted when Dumbledore seemed content to simply observe him through half-moon spectacles. "Indeed." Dumbledore steepled his fingers, the blackened hand stark against its healthy counterpart. "Our research has yielded potential avenues." Hope flickered briefly in Harry's chest. "You found a way to remove it without killing me?" "Perhaps." Dumbledore's expression remained grave. "Ancient magic often demands balance, Harry. To remove a soul fragment without destroying its vessel requires substitution. Someone else would have to die in my place," Harry concluded flatly. "That's not a solution I'm prepared to accept." Dumbledore smiled sadly. "Your mother would be proud of that answer." "But no, I wasn't suggesting human sacrifice, however noble the volunteer might be." He rose, moving to a cabinet from which he withdrew a shallow stone basin etched with arcane runes, the pensive Harry had encountered during their previous sessions. "I believe the answer lies in understanding precisely what happened the night your parents died," Dumbledore continued, placing the pensive on his desk. "Specifically, the nature of your mother's protective sacrifice." With a tap of his wand, Dumbledore summoned a memory into the basin, where it swirled like liquid silver. This memory was extracted from the mind of Bathilda Bagshot, who lived near your parents in Godric's Hollow. She witnessed certain events of that night from her window, events that may hold the key to your salvation. Harry leaned forward, drawn to the swirling memory despite his apprehension. Together, they descended into Bathilda's recollection of that fateful Halloween night. The memory was fragmentary, viewed from a distance through rain-streaked glass. Bathilda had seen a tall, cloaked figure approach the Potter cottage, had witnessed the flash of killing curses from within. But most importantly, she had observed an extraordinary phenomenon after Voldemort's curse rebounded, a visible manifestation of magic radiating from the nursery window, a golden light that seemed to form a dome around the cottage before dissipating into the night. Lily's protection, Dumbledore explained as they emerged from the memory. Not simply a shield against Voldemort's killing curse, but an enduring charm of extraordinary power, one that lives in your blood. "This isn't new information," Harry pointed out. "We've known about my mother's sacrifice for years." "Yes," Dumbledore acknowledged. "But what I've recently discovered is how that protection might be leveraged against the soul fragment you carry." He moved to his desk, removing an ancient text bound in faded red leather. This grimoire belonged to Helga Hufflepuff herself. Unlike her descendants, she was fascinated by the intersection of healing magic and soul work, what we might today call spiritual mending. Harry accepted the book carefully, feeling the residual magic thrumming beneath his fingertips. "And she found a way to remove soul fragments?" "Not precisely," Dumbledore cautioned. "But she documented cases where fragments of malevolent spirits were expelled from possessed vessels through overwhelming expressions of their opposites." "Love magic," Harry translated. "Like my mother used." "Precisely." Dumbledore's eyes gleamed with scholarly excitement. Hufflepuff theorized that the fundamental nature of souls is immutable, darkness cannot exist where true light overwhelms it. Harry frowned, turning this concept over in his mind. "So you believe my mother's protection, the love magic in my blood, could be amplified somehow to drive out Voldemort's soul fragment?" "With the proper ritual, yes." Dumbledore resumed his seat, suddenly looking weary. "But such magic requires catalyst and connection. In this case, the connection already exists through your blood tie to Lily's sacrifice. The catalyst, however, would be what? Harry pressed. Dumbledore hesitated before answering. Voldemort himself. Or more specifically, the event that would force your mother's protection to manifest at its fullest potential. Understanding dawned, cold and clear. You want him to kill me. To use the killing curse on me again. I believe, Dumbledore said carefully, that if Voldemort were to strike you with the killing curse, the protection in your blood would activate as it did before, but this time, with your conscious participation and magical maturity, you could direct that power inward, against the fragment you carry, rather than outward against Voldemort. Harry stood abruptly, pacing the office as he processed this theory. So instead of the curse killing me, it would kill only the piece of his soul I contain. That is my hypothesis, yes. Based on a theory from a 1,000-year-old book and a fragmented memory, Harry noted drily. Indeed. Dumbledore didn't attempt to soften the assessment. The alternative being to destroy the vessel, as we've done with the other Horcruxes. Harry stopped before Fawkes's perch, absently stroking the phoenix's brilliant plumage. The bird leaned into his touch, emanating warmth that seemed to reach beyond physical sensation. There's more you're not telling me, Harry said finally, turning back to face Dumbledore. This plan requires Voldemort to believe killing me is necessary for his victory. Why would he think that, unless, he broke off as realization struck. There's a prophecy. That's what he was after at the Department of Mysteries last year. Dumbledore sighed heavily. Your insight continues to impress, Harry. Yes, there is a prophecy, one made before your birth, which Voldemort heard only in part. He drew his wand, touching it to his temple to extract a silvery memory strand, which he deposited in the pensieve. From the swirling depths rose the translucent figure of Sybil Trelawney, her eyes unfocused as she spoke in a harsh, otherworldly voice, the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. As the prophecy faded, Harry remained silent, absorbing its implications. After all these years, the kidnapping, Bellatrix's obsessive training, the scar, the Horcrux, the fundamental truth was almost anticlimactic. One of them had to kill the other. You've known this since before I was born, he said finally, his voice carefully neutral. Yes. Dumbledore didn't attempt to justify the withholding of this information. And you allowed Bellatrix to take me. It wasn't a question. No. For the first time, Dumbledore's composure cracked, genuine anguish flashing across his features. That was my greatest failure, Harry. I placed you with your mother's sister, believing her blood would strengthen Lily's protection. I never imagined Bellatrix would find you there, or that she would circumvent the blood wards. But she did, Harry said flatly. And for 10 years, you never found me. Not for lack of trying, Dumbledore countered softly. The Fidelius charm Bellatrix used was masterfully cast. Without the Secret Keeper's cooperation, no magical means could locate you. Harry turned away, gazing out the office window toward the forbidden forest. The prophecy echoed in his mind, particularly the phrase, "Power the Dark Lord knows not." Dumbledore would say it was love, his mother's sacrifice, his capacity for compassion despite Bellatrix's influence. But Harry suspected it might be something else entirely, something neither Dumbledore nor Voldemort truly understood. Balance. Unlike either of them, Harry had been shaped by both light and darkness. Bellatrix's teachings, however twisted her intent, had given him intimate knowledge of magic Dumbledore's followers would never touch. And his time with the Order had tempered that knowledge with purpose beyond power for its own sake. He was, perhaps, the only wizard alive who could move between these worlds without being consumed by either. I'll consider your theory, he said finally, turning back to Dumbledore. About using my mother's protection against the Horcrux. But I won't be a sacrifice play in your strategy against Voldemort. Dumbledore nodded gravely. I would expect nothing less, Harry. You've earned the right to choose your own path. He hesitated, then added, but consider this, prophecies are fulfilled as much by our choices as by fate. The power to vanquish Voldemort may lie not in what magic you wield, but in how you choose to wield it. As Harry prepared to depart, Fawkes suddenly left his perch, circling the office once before landing on Harry's shoulder. The phoenix's warmth seeped through his robes, strangely comforting. It seems, Dumbledore observed with a faint smile, that Fawkes has made his own choice in this matter. Harry stroked the brilliant plumage, remembering what he'd read about phoenixes, creatures of rebirth, of transformation through fire. Perhaps there was symbolism there, a message about his own potential transformation. Or perhaps it was simply that the phoenix, like Harry himself, existed at the intersection of death and life, of ending and beginning. Either way, as he left Dumbledore's office with Fawkes still perched on his shoulder, Harry felt for the first time that he might have an ally who understood his unique position, neither fully of the light nor the dark, but something new altogether. The room of requirement had transformed itself into a vast training chamber, similar to the one Harry had known in his childhood but without the oppressive darkness Bellatrix had favored. Here, he had spent countless hours over the past 6 months, preparing a select group of Hogwarts students for the battle they all knew was coming. Again, Harry instructed, observing as Neville Longbottom, once considered nearly a squib, executed a complex shielding charm that deflected hexes from 3 different directions simultaneously. Brilliant, Neville! Ginny Weasley called from across the room, where she was practicing her own specialty, a modified bat bogey hex that could incapacitate multiple opponents. Harry moved among the students, correcting stances, adjusting wand movements, suggesting tactical improvements. Dumbledore's army, they called themselves, though Harry privately thought the name unnecessarily provocative. Still, the 50-odd students from various houses had made remarkable progress under his tutelage. Even the Slytherins among them, initially viewed with suspicion by the others, had proven their commitment to fighting Voldemort. Daphne Greengrass and Blaise Zabini had particular talent for the subtler combat magics Harry had introduced, spells that incapacitated rather than harmed, that confused rather than confronted directly. Potter, a familiar voice drawled from the entrance. A word? Draco Malfoy stood in the doorway, his pointed face set in its habitual sneer, though the effect was somewhat undermined by the dark circles beneath his eyes. Their relationship remained complicated, childhood quasi-friendship transformed into wary alliance after Harry's escape from Bellatrix. While Lucius Malfoy had maintained his position in Voldemort's inner circle, Draco had made different choices. Not out of any great moral awakening, Harry suspected, but from pragmatic self-preservation once he understood the Dark Lord's true nature. Continue practicing the Patronus sequence, Harry instructed the group before joining Draco in the corridor outside. My father sent an urgent message, Draco said without preamble, his voice low. The attack comes tonight. The Dark Lord has found a way past the school's outer defenses through the vanishing cabinet in the room of requirement. Harry's eyes narrowed. The one you were supposed to be repairing. The one I've been deliberately sabotaging, Draco corrected irritably. But Bellatrix grew suspicious. She's completed the connection herself. How many? At least 30 Death Eaters, including the werewolf Greyback. And... Draco hesitated, genuine fear flashing across his features. The Dark Lord himself plans to come once the way is secured. Harry absorbed this information quickly, mind already calculating defensive strategies. We need to evacuate the younger students immediately. The DA can help coordinate, there's more, Draco interrupted. Bellatrix told my father she has special plans for you when they come. Something about completing your education. A chill that had nothing to do with the castle's drafts ran down Harry's spine. For 2 years he'd managed to avoid direct confrontation with his former mentor, their encounters limited to brief skirmishes where neither had fully engaged the other. But he'd known this reckoning was inevitable. Thank you for the warning, Harry said sincerely. Draco shrugged uncomfortably. Consider it repayment for keeping my mother out of Azkaban last year." They both knew it was more than that, but neither was inclined to examine their complicated history too closely. Some debts could never be fully calculated or repaid. "You should go," Harry advised. "When this starts, being caught between sides will be the most dangerous position." "I'm not running," Draco replied with unexpected firmness. "My mother remains at the manor under effective house arrest. If the Dark Lord falls tonight, she'll need witnesses to testify she was kept there against her will." Harry studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Then fight with us. Properly, not from the shadows." Before Draco could respond, Fawkes appeared in a flash of flame, circling their heads once before landing on Harry's shoulder. The phoenix trilled urgently, conveying a message only Harry could interpret. "Dumbledore knows," he translated grimly. "The wards have detected intrusion attempts at the boundaries. It's starting." Together, they hurried back into the room of requirement, where the DA members had already sensed something was wrong. Harry moved to the center of the room, and the chatter died immediately as all eyes turned to him. "Hogwarts will be attacked tonight," he announced without preamble. "Death Eaters have found a way past the outer defenses. Our job is to evacuate the younger students while the Order and the professors secure the castle." Instead of panic, Harry's words triggered the practiced response they had drilled for months. Leaders from each house stepped forward to receive specific assignments, while others began transforming the room of requirement into the command center they had prepared. "Neville, take the Hufflepuffs and secure the evacuation route through the Hog's Head passage. Luna, your team needs to alert the professors without causing panic among the general student body. Ginny, your group will coordinate with the Order members already in the castle." As the DA mobilized with impressive efficiency, Harry drew Hermione Granger aside. The brilliant Muggleborn, which had become one of his closest allies since his arrival in the wizarding world, her analytical mind complementing his intuitive grasp of magic. "I need you to get something from my quarters," he said quietly. "The locked chest under my bed. The password is toujours per." Hermione's eyebrows rose at the Black family motto, but she asked no questions. "What about you?" "I'm going to seal the room of requirement once everyone's out. If the Death Eaters are coming through the vanishing cabinet, I want them to find me waiting, not a corridor full of students." "That's suicide, Harry," she protested. "Even you can't fight 30 Death Eaters alone." "I don't intend to fight them all," he replied grimly. "Just delay them long enough for the evacuation to complete." He hesitated, then added, "And there's someone among them I need to face. Alone." Understanding dawned in Hermione's eyes. "Bellatrix." Harry nodded once, his expression hardening. "Some debts can only be settled directly." Before she could argue further, Fawkes trilled again, more urgently this time. Harry extended his arm, allowing the phoenix to launch itself toward the ceiling, where it disappeared in a flash of flame, presumably returning to Dumbledore. "Go," Harry told Hermione. "Get the chest and take it to the Great Hall. If I don't make it out of here." He hesitated. "Tell Sirius I made my own choices. No regrets." Her eyes filled with tears, but she squared her shoulders resolutely. "You'll tell him yourself." With that, she hurried away, already calling instructions to the others. As the room of requirement emptied, its configuration began to shift, responding to Harry's unspoken need for a battleground that would favor him against superior numbers. The vast training space contracted, becoming a circular chamber with multiple levels and shadowed alcoves from which he could strike and retreat. At its center stood a tall cabinet of black wood, ornately carved with scenes of magical beasts. As Harry watched, it began to vibrate slightly, a faint glow emanating from within. The vanishing cabinet was activating. The Death Eaters were coming. Harry moved into position behind a stone pillar, Lily Potter's wand held ready in his right hand. In his left, almost forgotten until this moment, he clutched the Slytherin locket Bellatrix had given him on his 11th birthday, the tainted object he now recognized as another of Voldemort's Horcruxes. He had carried it all these years, first in ignorance, then in calculation. The soul fragment within seemed to sense its kin behind Harry's scar, creating a resonance that had helped him track the other Horcruxes. Now it would serve one final purpose. As the cabinet doors began to creak open, Harry closed his eyes briefly, centering himself in the magical disciplines he had mastered. Not just Bellatrix's combat techniques or Dumbledore's defensive strategies, but the synthesis he had created between them, a magic entirely his own, neither dark nor light but balanced on the knife edge between. When he opened his eyes, Harry Potter was ready, not as the weapon Bellatrix had tried to forge, nor as the savior Dumbledore had hoped to guide, but as himself. The wizard who would choose his own destiny. The first Death Eater through the cabinet barely had time to orient himself before Harry's silent stupefy dropped him where he stood. The second and third emerged together, wands raised defensively, but Harry's modified impediment jinx, designed to bypass standard shields, froze them mid-step. Then everything happened at once. The cabinet disgorged Death Eaters in rapid succession, their masked faces turning in confusion as they found themselves under immediate attack. Spells ricocheted around the chamber, shattering pillars and scorching walls as Harry moved with the fluid grace Bellatrix had literally beaten into him years ago, never remaining in one position long enough to present a clear target. "Find him!" Someone shouted. Dolohov, Harry thought, recognizing the voice from the Department of Mysteries battle. "Spread out, you fools," another commanded, definitely Lucius Malfoy, his aristocratic drawl unmistakable even in crisis. Harry picked them off systematically, not killing, despite knowing many deserved death, but incapacitating with precision strikes that would keep them from rejoining the battle quickly. 7 Death Eaters lay unconscious or bound before they even coordinated their response. Then a high, cold laugh cut through the chaos, and the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. "Enough games, little Potter," Bellatrix Lestrange's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Come out and face your mother properly." Harry stilled, his back pressed against a half-collapsed wall. He could sense her, not through conventional magic, but through the connection forged by years of proximity. Bellatrix had left her mark on his magical signature just as surely as Voldemort had scarred his forehead. "You were never my mother, Bella," he called back, deliberately using the familiar name. "Just my jailer." A curse blasted the wall inches from his head, showering him with stone fragments. Harry rolled clear, coming up in a defensive stance as Bellatrix stepped from the shadows across the chamber. She looked both exactly as he remembered and somehow changed, still wild-haired and hollow-cheeked from Azkaban, her eyes burning with that familiar fanatical light. But there was something else there too, a desperate intensity that bordered on panic. "Ungrateful child," she spat, advancing slowly, wand extended. The remaining Death Eaters fell back, recognizing this as a personal confrontation. "After everything I taught you. Everything I gave you." "You gave me nothing," Harry countered, circling to maintain distance between them. "Everything I am, I became despite you, not because of you." Rage contorted Bellatrix's features. "I made you," she shrieked. "I took a mewling infant and forged a warrior worthy of the Dark Lord. Without me, you would be nothing, a mediocre wizard with delusions of importance, like your pathetic father." "My father defied Voldemort 3 times before he died," Harry said quietly. "He faced him without a wand, buying time for my mother to protect me. There was nothing mediocre about James Potter." Bellatrix's laugh was brittle, edged with madness. "Is that what they told you? The blood traitor Black and the muggle-loving Dumbledore?" She advanced another step. "Your father died sniveling, begging the Dark Lord for mercy. Your mother offered you up in exchange for her own worthless life. You're lying." Harry's voice remained steady, though his grip on his wand tightened. "My mother's sacrifice protected me. Her love created a magic Voldemort couldn't overcome." "Love," Bellatrix sneered. "The last refuge of the weak. Where was that precious love when you mastered the Imperieuse curse at 9? When you learned to shield your mind from the most accomplished legilimens by 11? When you disarmed me with a spell chain you created yourself? Her voice dropped to an almost seductive whisper. That wasn't love, my darling boy. That was power. My gift to you. The worst part was that she believed it, genuinely believed her abuse and manipulation had been acts of twisted devotion. In her broken mind, she had saved him, prepared him, elevated him. You're right about one thing, Harry acknowledged, maintaining the delicate distance between them as they continued their deadly dance around the chamber. You taught me about power. But you never understood its purpose. Purpose? Bellatrix laughed. Power needs no purpose beyond itself. That's where you're wrong. Harry's voice hardened. Power without purpose is just destruction. That's all Voldemort has ever offered, the tearing down of a world he doesn't have the vision to rebuild. Something flickered in Bellatrix's eyes, doubt, perhaps, or a momentary recognition of truth. But it vanished almost immediately, subsumed by her fanatical loyalty. You speak of what you cannot comprehend, she hissed. The Dark Lord's vision transcends your limited understanding. His vision, Harry said deliberately, is a lie he tells his followers to justify his own fear of death. He doesn't care about blood purity or wizarding tradition, he cares only about his own immortality. Bellatrix's face contorted with rage. Crucio. The curse shot toward Harry with blinding speed, but he was prepared, had been prepared for this specific moment for years. Rather than dodging or attempting to block the unforgivable, he cast a spell Bellatrix herself had taught him, Dolor Reflectum, an obscure dark countermeasure that redirected pain-based curses. The Cruciatus rebounded, striking Bellatrix squarely in the chest. She collapsed with a shocked scream, her body convulsing as her own torture curse ravaged her nervous system. Harry didn't press his advantage. Instead, he waited until the curse dissipated naturally, leaving Bellatrix gasping on the floor, her wand still clutched in a white-knuckled grip. You see, he said quietly. Everything you taught me, I learned. Including how to turn your weapons against you. Slowly, painfully, Bellatrix pushed herself to her knees. Her face, when she looked up at him, held an expression Harry had never seen there before, respect mingled with fear. My perfect weapon, she whispered. Even against me. I am not your weapon, Harry stated firmly. I never was. Not really. The remaining Death Eaters had backed away, forming a loose circle around their confrontation. Harry could sense their uncertainty, the legend of Harry Potter, the boy who lived, colliding with the unexpected reality of a wizard who wielded dark magic with casual proficiency. Bellatrix struggled to her feet, swaying slightly but recovering with the resilience that had always characterized her. The Dark Lord comes, she said, a smile spreading across her face. He will show you your true place. As if summoned by her words, the vanishing cabinet began to glow again, more intensely than before. The air around it seemed to thicken, heavy with malevolent magic that Harry recognized immediately through the connection in his scar. Voldemort was indeed coming. But Harry had expected this, had planned for it from the moment Draco warned him of the attack. With a swift movement, he drew the Slytherin locket from his pocket, holding it aloft where all could see it. Tell your master, he called to the assembled Death Eaters, that Harry Potter has something he wants. The locket caught the light, its golden surface gleaming ominously. Several Death Eaters gasped in recognition, but Bellatrix's reaction was the most revealing, her face drained of color, her eyes widening in horror. Where did you get that? She whispered. You gave it to me, Harry replied. On my 11th birthday. A token of how far I'd come, you said. Belonged to Salazar Slytherin himself. His smile was cold. But that wasn't its true significance, was it, Bella? Before she could respond, Harry closed his fist around the locket and disappeared, not with the distinctive crack of apparition, which should have been impossible within Hogwarts, but in a flash of phoenix fire as Fawkes materialized briefly to transport him. The last thing he saw was Bellatrix's face, transformed by an emotion he had never before witnessed in his former captor, pure, unadulterated terror. The Great Hall of Hogwarts had been transformed into a command center. House tables pushed aside, members of the Order of the Phoenix coordinated with professors and the older DA members to organize Hogwarts' defense. Maps of the castle hovered in the air, magical markers tracking the movements of both defenders and invaders. Harry's arrival by Phoenix Fire caused a momentary pause in activity before Dumbledore strode forward, his blackened hand more pronounced than ever against the white of his robes. "They've breached the Room of Requirement," Harry reported without preamble. "At least 20 Death Eaters, with Voldemort himself coming through momentarily." Sirius pushed through the crowd to reach him. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Harry assured him. "But we don't have much time." "The evacuation, nearly complete," McGonagall interrupted, her Scottish brogue more pronounced under stress. "The younger students are being transported to safe houses through the Hog's Head passage." "And the others?" "In defensive positions throughout the castle," Kingsley Shacklebolt answered. "The Order is coordinating with the senior DA members you trained." Harry nodded, relieved that his preparations hadn't been in vain. His gaze found Hermione across the hall, where she stood beside the chest he'd sent her to retrieve. At his nod, she began making her way toward them. "Voldemort will come here," Harry told Dumbledore, keeping his voice low. "Not for the students or the castle itself, but for two things, your wand, and me." "Yes," Dumbledore agreed gravely. "I believe you are correct." "Then we use that." Harry drew the Slytherin locket from his pocket again, holding it where only Dumbledore and Sirius could see. "He'll come for this as well, once he knows I have it." Dumbledore's eyes widened fractionally, the closest thing to shock Harry had ever witnessed from the headmaster. "You found another." "Bellatrix gave it to me years ago," Harry explained. "I didn't understand its significance then, but I've carried it ever since. It's how I've been able to sense the others." "Horcrux recognizing Horcrux," Dumbledore murmured, glancing meaningfully at Harry's scar. Sirius looked between them, his expression darkening as he grasped the implications. "You're not suggesting using Harry as bait?" "Not bait," Harry corrected. "Leverage." He tucked the locket away as Hermione reached them, carefully setting down the chest she'd retrieved from his quarters. "Voldemort doesn't know about his connection to me." "Not fully. He senses something, but doesn't understand what." "Which gives you an advantage," Dumbledore concluded. "But not enough of one to face him directly," Sirius objected. "Harry, even with all your training, I don't intend to duel him," Harry interrupted, kneeling to open the chest with a complex wand movement. "At least, not conventionally." The chest opened to reveal an array of objects Harry had collected during his time with the Order, some magical artifacts, others apparently mundane items that nonetheless radiated subtle power. At the center lay a small crystal vial containing a swirling silver-red substance that was neither liquid nor gas. "Is that," Hermione began. "Phoenix tears mixed with basilisk venom," Harry confirmed, carefully lifting the vial. "From the Chamber of Secrets." "Opposites in perfect suspension," Dumbledore observed with scholarly interest. "How did you achieve such equilibrium?" "Balance is something I understand," Harry replied simply. "Living between darkness and light creates perspectives others might miss." Reaching deeper into the chest, he withdrew a slender object wrapped in black silk. Unwrapping it revealed a dagger of goblin-wrought silver, its blade inscribed with runes that glowed faintly in the hall's magical light. "The ritual knife of Arcturus Black," Sirius identified, looking troubled. "From my family's collection." "Harry, what exactly are you planning?" Instead of answering directly, Harry turned to Dumbledore. "You were partly right about using my mother's protection against the Horcrux. But waiting for Voldemort to cast the killing curse again is too passive, too dependent on his choices rather than mine." "You found another way," Dumbledore surmised. Harry nodded. "The protection lives in my blood. The Horcrux exists behind my scar. If I can create the right magical environment, a confluence of opposites like the Phoenix Tears and Basilisk Venom, I believe I can force the fragment out without destroying the vessel." "That's blood magic," Hermione whispered, looking horrified. "Harry, the risks are mine to take," he finished firmly. This ends tonight, one way or another. A tremendous crash shook the castle before anyone could respond further. Dust rained from the enchanted ceiling as magical alarms triggered throughout the hall. The main gates have been breached, Kingsley reported grimly. Death Eaters from the exterior are joining those who came through the room of requirement. He's here, Harry said, his scar beginning to prickle with familiar pain. Voldemort has entered Hogwarts. Dumbledore straightened, suddenly every inch the powerful wizard who had defeated Grindelwald decades earlier. To your positions, he commanded the assembled defenders. Remember your training and protect each other. Hogwarts stands tonight against the darkness, as it has for 1,000 years. As the hall emptied, defenders rushing to their assigned locations, Dumbledore turned back to Harry. Whatever you intend, Harry, know that I have faith in you, not as a weapon or a sacrifice, but as the remarkable young man you become despite circumstances that would have broken most wizards. The simple sincerity of the statement caught Harry off guard. For years, he'd maintained a careful distance from Dumbledore, viewing him as yet another figure who saw Harry primarily for his utility in the war against Voldemort. To recognize genuine respect, even affection, in the old wizard's words was unexpectedly moving. Thank you, Harry said quietly. For seeing me, not just what I might do. Dumbledore smiled sadly. Perhaps too late, but sincerely nonetheless. He glanced toward the great doors of the hall. I will delay him as long as possible. Prepare whatever ritual you intend, but Harry, promise me one thing. What? That you will value your life as much as those you fight to protect. Before Harry could respond, another explosion rocked the castle. Dumbledore nodded once to Sirius, a silent communication between two men who, despite their differences, shared a common love for Harry. Then he strode toward the doors, elder wand raised, magic gathering around him like a storm. Come on, Harry told Sirius and Hermione. We need to get to the Chamber of Secrets. It's the only place in Hogwarts with the right magical resonance for what I need to do. Harry, Sirius caught his arm. Whatever happens down there, know that your parents would be proud of the man you've become. As am I. The simple declaration, so similar to Dumbledore's yet carrying the weight of family, brought unexpected tears to Harry's eyes. I know, he said hoarsely. That's what makes this possible. As they hurried from the hall through a concealed passage, the sounds of battle erupted behind them, Dumbledore confronting the Dark Lord in what might be their final duel. Harry pushed down his instinct to stay and help, reminding himself that the true victory wouldn't come from conventional combat. The path to ending Voldemort, truly ending him, lay beneath the castle, in the ancient chamber where another piece of his soul had once resided. Harry only hoped his calculations were correct, and that the price of victory wouldn't be higher than any of them could bear. The Chamber of Secrets remained much as Harry remembered from his brief visit years earlier, vast, dimly lit, with towering stone pillars entwined with carved serpents. The skeleton of the basilisk still lay where it had fallen, a grim reminder of Voldemort's earlier attempt to return through another of his soul fragments. This is where Tom Riddle nearly came back through the diary, Harry explained as they reached the central platform where the statue of Salazar Slytherin loomed. The magical residue here is perfect for what we need, a place where a Horcrux was destroyed, where basilisk venom still permeates the very stones. Hermione looked around nervously. You're sure we can't be followed? Only a Parselmouth can open the chamber, Harry reminded her. And currently, that's only myself and Voldemort. Who is rather occupied with Dumbledore at the moment, Sirius added grimly. But that won't last forever. Whatever you're planning, Harry, we should hurry. Harry nodded, already removing items from the small pack he'd brought from the Great Hall, the vial of phoenix tears and basilisk venom, the ritual dagger, and several other components he'd prepared over months of research. Working methodically, he began inscribing a complex pattern on the stone floor, using a mixture of powdered silver and his own blood to create a ritual circle unlike anything taught at Hogwarts. This is ancient magic, Hermione observed, recognizing elements from her extensive reading. Pre-Wand era. From multiple traditions, Harry confirmed. Part goblin blood binding, part Egyptian soul magics, with elements of the protection ritual my mother unknowingly performed when she died for me. He glanced up at her. Bellatrix taught me something useful after all, how to synthesize magical disciplines others treat as separate. Sirius watched with a troubled expression as Harry completed the circle. And this will extract the Horcrux without killing you? That's the theory. Harry straightened, examining his work critically. The circle creates a bounded space where conflicting magics can exist simultaneously without destroying each other, like the vial of phoenix tears and basilisk venom, held in perfect suspension. And the dagger? Hermione asked warily. Blood is required, Harry said simply. Freely given, not taken. My blood, which carries my mother's protection, will activate the circle and draw out the foreign soul fragment. Neither Sirius nor Hermione looked reassured, but they helped as Harry directed them to place enchanted candles at specific points around the circle. The final component was the Slytherin locket, which Harry positioned at the center of the pattern. The fragment in my scar will be drawn to its kin, he explained. Like calling to like. When everything was prepared, Harry stepped into the circle, careful not to smudge the intricate patterns. Whatever happens, don't cross the line, he warned them. The magic must remain contained. Harry, Hermione's voice wavered. If this goes wrong, it won't, he assured her with more confidence than he felt. But if it does, tell the others I chose this. That I wasn't a sacrifice, but a wizard making his own decision. Before either could respond, Harry raised the ritual dagger and began to chant in a language older than Hogwarts itself, words he discovered in the deepest recesses of the Black family library, in texts so ancient they predated the arbitrary distinction between dark and light magic. The chamber's ambient magic responded immediately, the air becoming thick with power that swirled around the ritual circle like invisible currents. Harry continued the incantation, his voice growing stronger as he felt the magic building, responding to his will and intent. With precise movements, he drew the dagger across his palm, allowing blood to drip onto the locket at the circle's center. The moment his blood containing Lily Potter's ancient protection, touched Voldemort's Horcrux, a high, cold scream emanated from the locket, though it didn't open. Harry didn't falter, continuing the ritual as his blood mixed with the powdered silver of the circle, causing the entire pattern to glow with an eerie light that was neither the red of dark magic nor the white of conventional spellwork, but a pulsing purple that seemed to exist between realms. His scar began to burn with increasing intensity, but Harry embraced the pain, using it to focus his will more sharply. This was the crucial moment, when the fragment within him would recognize the fragment in the locket, when the bounded magic of the circle would force both to manifest physically rather than remaining anchored to their containers. Mother, he whispered between words of the formal incantation, help me now. The pain in his scar peaked suddenly, becoming so intense that Harry stumbled to his knees. He heard Sirius cry out, saw Hermione move as if to enter the circle, but managed to raise a hand to stop her. Stay back, he gasped. It's working. Indeed, something was happening. The air above the locket had begun to shimmer, forming a miniature vortex of dark energy. Simultaneously, Harry felt a pulling sensation from his scar, not painful now but deeply disturbing, as if something buried beneath his skin was being slowly extracted. The locket burst open with another unearthly scream, and a wraith-like form began to coalesce above it, a shadowy approximation of a face Harry recognized from his confrontation years ago through Quirrell. Simultaneously, he felt something tear free from his scar, a sensation so profound it bordered on the metaphysical, as if a parasite that had been attached to his very soul was being ripped away. Blood poured from his forehead as a second wraith-like form emerged from the wound, smaller than the first but unmistakably of the same essence. The two fragments seemed to recognize each other, stretching toward one another within the confines of the ritual circle. Harry reached for the vial of phoenix tears and basilisk venom with trembling hands. This was the moment everything depended on, the introduction of perfectly balanced opposites into a system already strained by conflicting magics. Finite fragmentum, he intoned, uncorking the vial and pouring its contents onto the locket below the hovering wraiths. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The balanced solution, healing tears and deadly venom, created a magical chain reaction within the bounded circle. Light erupted from the point of contact, neither purely white nor black but a blinding purple that contained both yet was reduced to neither. The soul fragments writhed in apparent agony as the light engulfed them, their screams rising to an unbearable pitch before suddenly cutting off as they dissolved into nothingness, not merely destroyed but unmade, returned to the natural order from which Voldemort's unnatural magic had torn them. Harry felt the exact moment his scar was cleansed, a sensation of lightness, of burdens lifted, that left him gasping on his hands and knees within the now fading circle. Blood continued to flow from the wound, but the pain was different, clean, natural, the simple physical discomfort of injured flesh rather than the soul-deep agony of carrying another's fragment. Harry! Sirius rushed forward as the ritual circle dimmed, its purpose fulfilled. He caught Harry before he collapsed entirely, supporting him with strong arms. Did it work? Are you? It's gone, Harry confirmed weakly, raising a hand to his bleeding scar. Both fragments destroyed. I can feel the difference. Hermione knelt beside them, already casting diagnostic charms with the precision that had made her the top student in their year despite her late introduction to the wizarding world. The wound is deep but clean, she reported. No magical residue beyond the natural traces of the ritual itself. Harry nodded, allowing Sirius to help him to his feet. The ritual had taken more out of him than he'd anticipated, not just physical strength but magical reserves as well. But the sense of liberation, of finally being fully himself without Voldemort's taint, was worth any temporary weakness. We need to get back, he said, already thinking of the battle raging above. Voldemort will have felt the destruction of the Horcruxes. He'll know something's happened, even if he doesn't understand what. You're in no condition to fight, Sirius objected. I don't need to fight, Harry replied, a grim smile forming on his blood-streaked face. Not conventionally. Before Sirius could press the point, a familiar trill echoed through the chamber as Fawkes appeared in a burst of flame above them. The phoenix circled once before landing on Harry's shoulder, bending its magnificent head to deposit healing tears directly onto the wound. The effect was immediate, not just closing the cut but infusing Harry with renewed energy, as if the phoenix's immortal fire flowed through his veins alongside his mother's protection. Thank you, he murmured to the bird, stroking its brilliant plumage. Fawkes trilled again, a sound that somehow conveyed both encouragement and warning. Dumbledore, Harry translated, understanding the phoenix's message instinctively. He's in trouble. Without waiting for agreement from the others, he grasped Fawkes's tail feathers. Take us to him. In a flash of warm fire that was nothing like conventional magical transportation, they vanished from the Chamber of Secrets, leaving behind the remains of the ritual that had finally freed Harry Potter from the burden he had carried since infancy. The burden of being, himself, a Horcrux. They materialized in the shattered remains of the Great Hall to find a scene of controlled chaos. The enchanted ceiling had collapsed in places, revealing the storm-dark sky above. The house tables lay in splintered ruins, and craters marked the stone floor where powerful curses had struck. At the center of this destruction, two wizards faced each other across 20 feet of devastated flagstones. Albus Dumbledore stood with his back to the staff table, the elder wand held in his blackened hand. His robes were torn and scorched, his silver beard singed, but his eyes remained clear and focused behind half-moon spectacles. Opposite him, Lord Voldemort cut a terrifying figure, tall and skeletally thin, his hairless skull and serpentine features twisted in fury, red eyes blazing. He held his wand before him like a conductor's baton, dark magic crackling around him in visible waves. Around the perimeter of the hall, Death Eaters and Defenders engaged in their own battles, Order members dueling alongside Hogwarts professors and the older DA students against masked figures in black robes. Harry spotted Bellatrix near Voldemort, her wild hair unmistakable as she dueled fiercely with Minerva McGonagall. Neither Dumbledore nor Voldemort immediately noticed their arrival, locked as they were in what appeared to be a momentary standoff after an exchange of devastating spells. "You cannot win, old man," Voldemort was saying, his high, cold voice carrying easily across the hall. "Your defenders fall one by one, while my followers grow stronger with each victory." "Strange," Dumbledore replied calmly, "for I see quite the opposite, Tom. Your inner circle diminishes, your Horcruxes are destroyed, and your hold on immortality slips away with each passing moment." Voldemort's face contorted with rage. "Lies. My anchors remain secure," he broke off suddenly, his serpentine features freezing in an expression of horrified realization. "What have you done?" It was at that moment that Harry stepped forward, Fawkes still perched on his shoulder. "He hasn't done anything," Harry called, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "But I have." All eyes turned to him, defenders and Death Eaters alike momentarily forgetting their own duels at the sound of his voice. Voldemort's red eyes widened as they fixed on Harry, then narrowed in calculating assessment. "Potter," he hissed. "Come to die at last?" "No," Harry replied simply. "I've come to end this." He held up the destroyed locket, its golden surface now blackened and twisted, the ornate S barely recognizable. "Your Horcrux is gone, Tom. As is the one you never intended to create." Understanding dawned in Voldemort's inhuman eyes as they flickered to Harry's forehead, where the lightning scar, though still visible, no longer pulsed with dark magic. "Impossible," he breathed. "The diary, the ring, the locket," Harry continued relentlessly. "All destroyed. How many more before you're merely mortal again? The cup? The diadem? Your precious snake?" Each word seemed to strike Voldemort like a physical blow, his pale skin growing even more corpse-like as Harry named the Horcruxes Dumbledore had identified through years of research. "Kill him!" Voldemort screamed, his composure shattering completely. Bellatrix was the first to respond, breaking away from her duel with McGonagall to launch herself toward Harry, her face contorted with conflicting emotions, rage, fear, and something almost like possessive pride. "Mine," she shrieked, sending a killing curse toward Sirius, who had moved to intercept her. "He was mine." Harry reacted instantly, shoving Sirius aside with wandless magic while simultaneously casting a shield that, impossibly, deflected Bellatrix's curse into the ceiling, where it exploded in a shower of green sparks. The great hall fell momentarily silent. Even Voldemort stared in shock. The killing curse could not be blocked, yet Harry had done exactly that, just as he had in their confrontation in the Room of Requirement. "How?" Bellatrix whispered, her wand arm falling slightly. "My mother's protection," Harry answered, stepping toward her with measured strides. "The magic you dismissed as weak sentiment. The power Voldemort knows not." He continued advancing until barely 10 feet separated them, captor and captive, teacher and student, facing each other one final time. "You could have been magnificent," Bellatrix said softly, genuine regret coloring her madness. By his side, feared throughout the wizarding world. "I choose a different path," Harry replied, neither raising his wand nor dropping his guard. "One that honors my true heritage, not just my mother's sacrifice, but the choices that defined her life." "Then you choose death," Bellatrix snarled, raising her wand again. "Avada, Expelliarmus." The simple disarming charm, the first spell Harry had mastered with his mother's wand all those years ago, struck Bellatrix with such force that her wand not only flew from her grasp but shattered mid-air, fragments of walnut and dragon heartstring raining down between them. Bellatrix stared at her empty hand in disbelief, then at Harry, her prized pupil who had surpassed her in ways she had never anticipated. For a moment, something almost like clarity shone in her dark eyes, a recognition of what she had created but could no longer control. "Magnificent," she whispered again, a twisted smile forming on her lips. "Worthy." Before Harry could respond, Voldemort's fury erupted in a wave of pure magical force that sent everyone, Death Eaters and Defenders alike, flying against the walls of the Great Hall. Only Harry, Dumbledore, and Voldemort himself remained standing, as if existed in the eye of a magical hurricane. "Enough games," Voldemort spat, his red eyes burning with hatred as he faced Harry directly. "If you have indeed destroyed my Horcruxes, then I shall simply create more, beginning with your death, Potter. The symmetry is pleasing." Harry stood his ground as Voldemort advanced, Lily's wand held ready but not raised aggressively. "You still don't understand, Tom. You never have. Enlighten me then, boy, before you die." "It was never about the Horcruxes, or prophecies, or even power," Harry said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "It was about choice. My mother chose to die rather than step aside. I choose to stand against you not because fate demands it, but because it's right." Voldemort's lipless mouth curved in a cruel smile. "Noble sentiments. Your mother expressed similar ideals before I killed her. And yet her choice defeated you," Harry reminded him. "Her love protected me. That protection flows in my blood still, blood you took to resurrect yourself, thinking it would overcome the old magic." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Voldemort's serpentine features. "What are you saying, Potter?" "I'm saying you carry my mother's protection within you now," Harry explained. "You made yourself vulnerable to the very magic you sought to overcome. That's why you cannot touch me without pain, why your killing curse rebounds, why your control over the Elder Wand has never been complete." Dumbledore, who had remained silent during this exchange, now stepped forward to stand beside Harry. "He speaks the truth, Tom. In your arrogance, you bound yourself to the very power you despise. Love, the force you have always underestimated." Voldemort's face contorted with rage. "Sentimental nonsense. There is only power, and those too weak to seek it." "Then prove it," Harry challenged. "Face me directly, no Death Eaters, no hostages, no shields. Just your power against mine." A cold, high laugh escaped Voldemort. "You truly believe you can match Lord Voldemort in a duel? You, a boy not yet out of school?" "Not in conventional magic, no," Harry admitted candidly. "Your technical knowledge exceeds mine. But this isn't about technical proficiency, is it? It's about what magic truly is, not just spells and wand movements, but will and intent and the nature of reality itself." As he spoke, Harry became aware of something strange happening around them. The magical storm Voldemort had created was shifting, responding not to the Dark Lord's rage but to Harry's calm certainty. The very fabric of Hogwarts, the ancient stones, the accumulated magic of centuries, seemed to resonate with his words. Voldemort noticed it too, his red eyes darting around suspiciously. "What trickery is this?" "No trick," Harry replied. "Simply Hogwarts recognizing its true purpose, not as a battlefield for your ambitions, but as a haven for magic in all its forms." With deliberate movements, Harry raised his mother's wand, not in aggressive stance but in formal dueling position, offering Voldemort the traditional salute between wizards. "One last chance, Tom," he said quietly. "End this peacefully. Submit to justice for your crimes." Voldemort's response was predictable, a slashing movement of his wand that sent a jet of green light directly at Harry's heart. Avada Kedavra. But Harry was prepared. Not with a shield charm or a counter curse, but with something far simpler yet infinitely more complex, pure, focused intent channeled through his mother's wand, amplified by the blood protection they now paradoxically shared. "Expelliarmus," he said calmly, pouring not just magical power but his entire will into the simple disarming charm. The spells met in midair with a sound like a cannon blast. But instead of the deadlock Voldemort clearly expected, something extraordinary happened. The green light of the killing curse seemed to pass through Harry's spell, continuing toward him even as the red light of his disarming charm streaked toward Voldemort. For a fraction of a second, triumph blazed in Voldemort's red eyes, until the killing curse reached Harry and simply dissipated, absorbed into an invisible shield that glowed momentarily gold before fading. In the next instant, Harry's spell struck Voldemort squarely in the chest. The wand flew from his grasp, arcing high into the enchanted ceiling. But more than that, Voldemort himself was thrown backward, his skeletal body lifted off its feet and hurled against the far wall with tremendous force. The Dark Lord crumpled to the floor, wandless and stunned, as his wand clattered down beside Harry. The great hall fell completely silent. Harry walked forward slowly, picking up Voldemort's wand and tucking it into his robes. The fallen Dark Lord stared up at him, incomprehension warring with fury on his inhuman face. "How?" Voldemort demanded, his high voice now ragged. "How is this possible?" "I told you," Harry said simply. "Your resurrection using my blood created a connection neither of us fully understood. You cannot harm me without harming yourself." Voldemort's red eyes narrowed. "Then we are at an impasse." "No." Harry shook his head. "We are at an ending. You've lost your Horcruxes, your wand, and the loyalty of your followers." He glanced around at the Death Eaters, many of whom were already being restrained by Order members. "You have one choice left, Tom, to try, before the end, for some remorse." "Remorse?" Voldemort spat the word as if it tasted foul. "The only thing that might heal a soul as damaged as yours," Harry explained. "Not punishment or vengeance, but genuine repentance for the lives you've taken, the pain you've caused." For a moment, just a moment, something flashed across Voldemort's serpentine features that might have been doubt, might have been fear, might even have been the faintest shadow of the human being Tom Riddle had once been. But it passed quickly, replaced by cold determination as Voldemort lunged to his feet with inhuman speed, a hidden second wand suddenly in his hand, pointed not at Harry, but at Dumbledore. "If I cannot kill you," he hissed, "then I will take from you what you value most." Harry's reaction was pure instinct, a wandless shield charm cast with such force that the air between Dumbledore and Voldemort seemed to solidify. The Dark Lord's curse, another killing curse, rebounded from the invisible barrier. In horrifying slow motion, Harry watched the green light return to its caster. Voldemort's red eyes widened in the instant before his own killing curse struck him squarely in the chest. The greatest dark wizard of the age crumpled without a sound, his second wand rolling from lifeless fingers, his red eyes staring sightlessly at the enchanted ceiling where stars now shone through the storm clouds. Lord Voldemort was dead, killed not by Harry's hand directly, but by his own reflected curse. The prophecy was fulfilled. A collective gasp ran through the great hall, followed by stunned silence as both sides absorbed what had just occurred. Then, from the corner where she had been thrown by Voldemort's magical blast, Bellatrix Lestrange let out a howl of pure anguish that raised goosebumps on every arm. "Master," she shrieked, struggling to her feet and lurching toward Voldemort's body. "No, no, no." Harry turned to intercept her, but someone else reached her first, Molly Weasley, whose son Fred had been injured earlier in the battle. With a mother's righteous fury, Molly cast a spell Harry didn't recognize, striking Bellatrix squarely in the chest. For an instant, Bellatrix froze, her face a mask of surprise. Then she toppled backward, as dead as her master. The remaining Death Eaters, seeing their leader fallen and his most devoted lieutenant defeated, began surrendering or attempting to flee. The Order members and Aurors moved quickly to secure them, while the hall erupted in a cacophony of voices, shock, relief, grief for those injured or lost in the battle. Harry stood motionless beside Voldemort's body, feeling neither triumph nor satisfaction, only a profound weariness and an equally profound sense of completion. The cycle that had begun 16 years ago in Godric's Hollow had finally ended. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to find Sirius beside him, face streaked with grime but eyes bright with fierce pride. "It's over," Sirius said softly. Harry nodded, then looked across to where Bellatrix lay. Despite everything, the years of captivity, the twisted training, the attempts on his life, he felt a complex emotion that wasn't quite grief but wasn't satisfaction either. "She made me what I am," he said quietly. "Not what she intended, but I can't pretend she had no part in this." Sirius followed his gaze. "She kidnapped you. Abused you. Tried to turn you into a weapon for him." "Yes," Harry acknowledged. And in doing so, she gave me the tools to defeat him. The understanding of dark magic that let me destroy the Horcruxes. The combat training that kept me alive long enough to face him directly. That doesn't mean you owe her anything, Sirius said firmly. Not gratitude, no, Harry agreed. But recognition, perhaps. That even the darkest intent can serve purposes beyond its master's design. Dumbledore joined them, his blackened hand more pronounced than ever against the white of his robes. Once again, Harry, you demonstrate wisdom beyond your years. The ability to acknowledge complexity, to see beyond simple categorizations of good and evil. Harry turned to the headmaster. The Horcrux hunt is complete. Voldemort is gone. What happens now? Dumbledore smiled gently. Now, Harry, comes the truly difficult part, building a world worthy of the sacrifice required to save it. As if on cue, Fawkes swooped down from the rafters where he had observed the final confrontation, landing on Harry's shoulder with a trill that somehow conveyed both congratulation and challenge. Looking around the damaged Great Hall, at the defenders tending their wounded, the captured Death Eaters being led away, the first tentative celebrations breaking out among the students, Harry understood what Dumbledore meant. Defeating Voldemort had been his destiny, shaped by prophecy and circumstance. What came next would be his choice alone. I'm not going back to how things were before, he said firmly. The Ministry's corruption, the pureblood prejudice, the divisions between magical beings, those are what allowed Voldemort to gain power in the first place. And you intend to address these issues yourself? Dumbledore asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Not alone, Harry replied. But I won't stand aside and watch another Dark Lord rise because we were too comfortable to change. Sirius laughed, throwing an arm around Harry's shoulders. James would say exactly the same thing. Lily too. Indeed they would, Dumbledore agreed. And I suspect, Harry, that you may succeed where generations before you have failed, precisely because you stand between worlds, understanding both darkness and light without being consumed by either. As dawn broke over Hogwarts, streaming through the shattered windows of the Great Hall, Harry Potter looked down at the wand in his hand, his mother's wand, which had served him faithfully from the day Bellatrix had given it to him, not knowing its true significance. It represented everything about his unusual journey, a tool of light used for dark purposes, then reclaimed for its original intent, yet forever changed by the path it had traveled. Much like Harry himself. Neither dark nor light, he murmured. But something new altogether. Fawkes trilled in agreement, and Harry felt the truth of it resonate through his very being. The boy who lived had fulfilled his prophecy. The wizard he had become would write his own destiny. And that, perhaps, was the greatest magic of all. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.